Hey, everybody, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's talk about this Pluto and Mars opposition that I promised you. A lot of astrologers are talking about it right now. So I want to unpack it by first explaining what it is. Then I'm going to be breaking it out into each of the individual signs. And I'm going to be talking about it also in relation to some other placements that I see. So today is November 3rd. This is the day where there's the exact conjunction begins, right? With that Mars energy in Cancer at 29 degrees and Pluto at 29 degrees in Capricorn, tomorrow Mars is going to be moving into Leo. And so then it becomes an out of bounds opposition. So this is set to be a very highly, highly charged week. It really is. But we're going to be feeling this energy all the way through May. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. But let's just start with what exactly is going on here. So this Pluto opposition, this is a very intense astrological aspect, and it symbolizes a very powerful period of transformation. And we've all been talking about that. But what does that actually mean? There's going to be a lot of confrontation. There's going to be a lot of looking at personal empowerment, and it's going to be a lot of like a tug of war energy, as I mentioned in one of my other videos. And the reason is Pluto is very controlling. He's very anxiety ridden, right? He's very there's a lot connected to the past with Pluto, right? And Mars is about, come on, let's go. I'm your warrior. I'm your energy to like get stuff done now. So we're looking at things that have been stubborn and stuck in our energy, that have been controlled in our energy, things that have maybe been making us feel anxious or at least less than comfortable. And Mars opposing it is going to be like, come on, man, fresh path, new perspective, let's go. And it's going to be this knowing that we have to step into something different, realizing where we are, and then trying to figure out that divide, trying to really sit down and confront and understand, trying to really understand how it is that we're going to make certain things happen. So when Pluto, again, deep transformation, meets Mars, which is all about that action, energy, and drive, there's often this very powerful dynamic where you're pushed to face these issues around control, around aggression, power, and resilience as well. Where are you more resilient than you realize you are, right? Where is there a lot of imposter syndrome showing up? Where are false narratives at play in your life, right? And so in this, it's 2024 into a 2025 situation. There are particular themes that we could absolutely understand are going to be happening between now and that mid-spring point, right? So the first thing we want to understand is this idea of intense motivation and ambition that we're going to be feeling. And you may find yourself really motivated by a fierce determination to achieve your goals. And again, I'm going to be going into specifics with each sign, but that idea is going to be there. Mars represents a lot of action, a lot of drive, and Pluto is, in that opposition is going to be pulling up all of these buried passions, desires, things from the past, especially things that we haven't healed yet, things that we've been wanting to do, things that have been on our mind, right? And this could potentially lead to a very obsessive focus where it's like, I've been wanting to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I'm feeling this pull, I'm feeling this pull. But then how do I get there? What do I do, right? So it's important to be mindful here of how you can channel this energy because Pluto can sometimes create this no matter what, I need to win at all costs kind of mentality, right? Oh, and it's almost this kind of thing where it's like, my whole life depends on it, right? Even though it's not real, that's what you're going to be feeling. So you want to make sure that you're balancing out your energies to help ensure that you don't burn out or alienate other people in your life in the process. Really important there. Now, another situation or another energy we're going to be dealing with is confronting these power struggles. So Pluto opposite Mars, this can bring a lot of realizations, lots of light to any areas where you feel that you're being controlled and or dominated by. Okay, so and this could be self-imposed, you know, control. dominated by, your sense of self or your lack of sense of self or an external situation, whatever it is. But it's anything that's been making you feel very limited or very held back. And so this kind of transit can often uncover hidden conflicts or unresolved tensions, sometimes with authority figures or people in positions of power, if not even just with ourselves. And this can be for many of us, a period where we feel like we need to learn how to properly assert ourselves without becoming really defensive and overly confrontational. So this is really a transit where we need to be finding healthy outlets and healthy ways of expressing our assertiveness. In areas that we're looking to push forward, right? There's such a difference between being assertive and being aggressive, being responsive versus being reactive, right? I mean, this is one transit where it really does apply. Now, another energy that we're going to be dealing with is this idea of transformation, the transformation of aggression and impulse. So, because Mars rules anger, and keep in mind too, Mars and Pluto, they're very similar, right? Because Mars was the original rulers, the ancient ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto is the modern ruler. So they're different like octaves of each other, right? But Mars does rule this idea of anger and aggression and impulsiveness. And Pluto intensifies whatever it touches, right? And they're sitting across the table from each other. So this can be a time when you confront these emotions within yourself, which could lead to transformative growth, which is really good because you want to remember Pluto is ultimately all about changing us for the better, leveling us up. He doesn't level us back unless we refuse to learn the lessons, but he is all about leveling us up. So you might become aware within your own energy of habits or impulses that you'd really like to change. And for some of you, it could be being too reactive, where you're reactive too quickly or getting frustrated easily, right? Anything connected to that Mars energy. If you have a lot of retrogrades in your chart, you might be someone who internalizes that anger, and that has to be where you make the change, right? Where you allow the frustration or whatever it is that you're holding within you to come out, right? But with Pluto's influence here, therapy, any sort of introspective analysis, shadow work, journaling, anything that's going to help give you a deeper perspective on self-awareness, your sense of self, and also your understanding of your surroundings and the life that you're living right now. So another idea that we're going to be dealing with as well it's personal power. I mean, there's no question here. Personal power as well as independence. So this Mars-Pluto transit can lead to breakthroughs in your personal empowerment in a way where you're like, wow, where did this come from, right? Something, especially if you think back to even just 6 months or a year ago, that you were really struggling with letting go of that relationship, that addiction, that way of being, whatever it was. Suddenly, right, there's this empowerment that sort of comes upon you. You might feel a strong urge to break away from situations or people who are holding you back, or at least are not on your team for the long term. So if you're involved in a situation, any kind of situation that feels very restrictive, this transit can help you develop the courage to step away, really analyze your circumstances in a way that can allow healthy transformation, or at least figure out new ways to wholly so assert your own personal independence. Okay. And the last thing I really want to mention here is this idea of healing and releasing old patterns, right? So we're going to have the transformation, but then there's going to be healing on the other side, as always is the case with Pluto. So, Pluto is very associated with deep healing and releasing of old patterns. So this is an opportunity to let go of anger, resentment, anything that any kind of hurt that happened in the past that you're still harboring, and I don't care how long ago it was, something that when you think about it, you still feel unsettled, some sort of wound connected to power dynamics can be looked at. any kind of wound or circumstance that challenges your sense of self-worth. You might even explore past experiences in this energy where you felt powerless or you lacked confidence at the very least, and transforming that very energy into a power of strength, and resolve within yourself. So during this opposition, in general, guys, there should be a lot of focus on practicing things that help you process emotions, release control, and and be very observant about what it is that you're doing, because this is a very important window of time. We've been excuse me, we've been talking about the change that Pluto brings. So Pluto doesn't just change by himself. He's got all of these players, right? And Mars is the first one up, really, to kind of join in the party of change, right? And so again, starts today, November 3rd. It's going to be going through really until May. Now, starting tomorrow, do want to remind you that Mars energy goes into Leo, and there begins what we call an out of bound opposition. And I did mention this in my last video. Out of bound oppositions can be very stressful. I'm not even going to try to dress that up. Great way of mitigating that before we break out into each of the signs is to recognize, try to have a lot of foresight wherever you can. Like if I have this particular conversation with this particular person, I know based on history that it's probably going to lead to some sort of confrontation, some sort of argument, some sort of, not a win-win situation. This is such a good period to sort of lighten your plate as much as you can when it comes to things that could stress you out, things that would be create a lot of challenge and argument within relationships. Just don't drink the Kool-Aid, guys, right? Do not get sucked down that rabbit hole. Don't get sucked down the rabbit hole, right? I mean, because it's so easy to do that, and like too easy to do that. So try to avoid the confrontation, try to avoid the arguments the best that you can, right? I mean, we can only do the best that we can. Right. But just be mindful that the energy is going to be super high. So, understand everybody's going to go through it. But if you within your own energy can just say, this is a transit that's not going to last, it's very based in anxiety, fear, power dynamics, things that have been building up. So just try to deal with only what it is that you need to deal with right now. Okay. With that, let's break out into each of the signs. We're going to start with our Aries friends. Hey Aries, I hope you guys are doing great. Okay, so right now we're going to talk about the two different signs, Capricorn and Aquarius, as far as where your Pluto is. Pluto in Capricorn right now at 29 degrees as of today, November 3rd, is opposing Mars at 29 degrees in your fourth house. So it's a 10th house, fourth house opposition. Remember, houses 10 and 4 are two out of the four angular houses, which does represent this idea of action. So what is going on here, right? So what is the push-pull? That controlling energy of the 10th house has to do with your career, public reputation, standing in the world, the status of your marriage, and also your long-term plans, because not everyone is working, right? So really it has to do with, where's my life going? What am I doing? It's a very public house as well. It's also the house that represents the manifestation of mother energy. So those of you who are blessed to still have your mom with you, your mom might be going through significant changes right now in her life. Now it's opposing that fourth house energy, again, where Mars is, and Mars is where the energy hangs out. So it's this gumption, it's the joie de vivre, it's the let's go, I want to do. And Mars is our warrior energy, right? And in that fourth house in Cancer, what are we fighting for? We're fighting for our emotional stability, right? We're fighting for things around the house, having to do with property and real estate, having to do with first family situations. And by the way, when I say first family, I mean people that you were raised with, right? Your siblings, would be your parents, but equally so, it could be the family that you have right now. That fourth house energy, again, it's the inner base of operations. It represents your core energy, your inner base of operations, and everything that has helped ground you and root you. Also, fourth house energy is the belief system that you were raised with, right? And with Mars energy in there opposing Pluto, many of you might be fighting against these ideologies that you were raised with. And a lot of you were probably feeling this energy. Today it happens to be exact. Tomorrow this opposition is going to be going out of bounds. But I don't only want to talk about houses 4 and 10, because we do have to talk about houses 5 and 11 as well. I feel that this is really important to understand because Pluto, in just a few weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, is going to be going into your 11th house, which is Aquarius energy connected to the future. Things are out of the box, things that are very different, having to do with groups, friends, science, advances in medicine. Pluto energy in there again could sort of bring this new change and transformation. And opposing the fifth house energy, fifth house rules our like childhood friends. And with that Pluto energy in the 11th, a lot of you may start to find that you're letting go of like old friends and you're making new friends. Some of you may just feel like you're not as in alignment, right, with your old friends. Some of you may be really sitting down and getting very serious about your goals and gains and where do you see your life going over the next 10 to 15 years. Some of you may be feeling this significantly. I do want to say that some of you, this fifth house, 11th house axis opposition may be impacting your children. So this fifth house is falling in love, love affairs, romance, our children, our monetizable talents, our entrepreneurial endeavors, having our own business. Um, it has to do with gambling and getting lucky gambling, taking a risk doing things, right? But it's just generally the house of joy, and Mars is in there. So you're going to have a very strong desire, literally. I mean, out of all of the signs, this very strong desire to just be really, really happy. And then what is that going to mean for you? So what can end up happening with Mars in the fifth is there could be some tense words exchanged with your kids, especially your oldest child. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Where are you going? Are you happy? Is this the right thing for you? Right? With that Pluto energy can be very controlling in that 11th house of goals and gains. So if you're in a position where you're rather worried about choices that your kids are making, this transit could certainly bring that to a head. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have drag out fights and everything is coming from a place of love, but there can be a lot of friction there, right? Either you towards them or them towards you, right? Because it's the opposition. It could be either one. Many of you, with that Pluto energy in the 11th opposing Mars in the 5th, many of you could even be really in this confrontational space with, do I even want to have a child? Is this something that I want to do? Do I really want to open that business? Do I really want to do what I thought I wanted to do in order to be happy? And a lot of you can feel really, really motivated if you've had yourself off the market in the relationship arena, really pushing, making yourself, right, making yourself get put back on the market to open yourself up to new relationships and new ideas and new connections, right? This can absolutely happen. That happens to be a really nice energy that could come out of this opposition. But it's going to be this idea where people are going to be crossing your path that you're not going to initially be comfortable with, right? Remember I discussed in my last video how not only November, but also really the next 6 months, it's going to be a lot about adding. There's going to be a lot of addition things, right? Now, because that Mars energy, at least for today, is in that Cancer energy in the fourth house, there could be some things that you're arguing with. Maybe you want to do some sort of remodel, or you want to move, or there's something that you want to get going having to do with the family front, or there's some sort of argument around the idea of family, growing a family, somebody moving in, somebody moving out. It's some sort of inner base of operations as well. But the fourth house, guys, is also very connected to our health. It is one of the energies the sixth house, Virgo energy, is really our health. So is Pisces energy, disease and disease. But the fourth house is as well. If we have any crazy transits in our fourth house, a lot of times we're just not feeling well. But a lot of it could just be like extreme vulnerability. We could be feeling a little down. And it's because we want to do X, Y, and Z, but we're not able to do it. It's a frustrating energy. It's going to pass. But this is a season and something that you are going to be having to deal with. Okay. Now, it's not only working with that, guys. I do have to say, I'm just looking at your chart. If you see my eyes looking away, it is squaring Hygeia at 26 degrees retrograde in your sign, in your first house, which is only 6 degrees away from Chiron. So, a lot of our Aries friends, especially, I'm not only say Aries risings, but even especially Aries sun, especially late decan. So that last decan, so 20 to 29 degrees, especially Aries energy in that realm, you may be dealing with some sort of health issue, but I want to be very specific. It would be some sort of health issue pertaining to your head, because Aries does rule the head. It rules the brain, the mind, the ears, the nose, the eyes, anything all the way down to like where your thyroid is sort of here, this little butterfly thing here. So anything there, the physicality of it. It's a very external energy. So something, and it's because it's opposing Libra, something affecting your skin. So anything, if you're feeling like your skin is really dry, or any sort of rashes that you're very reactive to, this could certainly be something that maybe even began a couple of weeks ago, and that you might be dealing with. You may be dealing with all the way through the spring. Now, I do want to say that because it will be, just within 2 weeks, it's cusping on the 29 degrees. So it really is technically in kind of that Aquarius energy, which is something very out of the box, very out of the ordinary. This could certainly be something coming from the immune system if you're having anything like that. Not to get too deep into the medical astrology, but whenever I see Hygeia working within 10 degrees of Chiron, I like to throw that out there. I'm not doing that to be scary. I'm doing it because, if you're having that experience, it's kind of on brand for the energy where we're at, and just make sure that you're getting that looked into. Now, this energy is also squaring Astraea. Now, Astraea is kind of known for having a really hard time letting go of things, and it's squaring Astraea in the seventh house of marriage and contracts and relationships, other people, in the sign of Libra, which has to do with fairness and transparency. And those squares create tension. So you may be in this space where, is your partner being fair with you? Is your partner being transparent with you? It could be your intimate partner or a really close friend. It could even be a business partner. There could even be some questions over whether what did the energetic output that you give of yourself in work, is it being appreciated? Are you being seen? These are ideas that are going to be coming up. So it's not just the opposition, it is also how the opposition is going to be speaking to several other energies as well. Now, we do have it trining. Let me see, one, two, yeah, trining Neptune. Neptune retrograde in that 12th house is in the sign of Pisces. Now, Neptune does rule disease and disease. It rules the 12th house, it's exalted in the 12th in the sign of Pisces. But when it's retrograde, there could be some sort of like disease or dis-ease that's cooking underneath the surface. Now, it is trining. Right? It's trining that Mars energy, which makes it very easy. So this idea of really strongly desiring something to be new, to be different, whether it has to do with your work, whether it has to do with your goals and gains and your future, and just being able to move forward in a different way, having it trine that Neptune energy, something that is holding you back here could be some sort of just not feeling yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, could be some sort of addiction, could be some sort of just connection to this idea of a lot of you are going to be in the space of like, am I self-sabotaging my happiness in order to make something happen, to make something work? But at the same time, man, are you going to be able to dream? I mean, Mars trining Neptune, you're going to be able to dream and create ideas of what it is that you think would be really ideal for you. So, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? I mean, because of the placements, we're talking about like your dream home, or what it is that you need to feel very emotionally safe and secure, what it is that you are looking for to achieve for yourself into the future. You're really able to tap into some solid ideas right now, solid ideas. But where the challenge may come in is in, how do I implement that, right? Mars does rule your first house, does rule your first house. Pluto does rule your eighth house. So when it comes to other people's money, your partner's money, investments, the stock market, any sort of situation you're in that's got a dollar amount, inheritance, insurance payout, debt, taxes, right? That Pluto energy could give you, you can have a very strong desire to actually take care of these things. You know, dealing with somebody else, a very strong desire to accumulate enough money for your retirement, a very strong desire to figure out what that's even going to look like, right? You don't want to play around anymore with these things. You're going to get very solid in things. Something going on with children and or a business, you're going to want to figure it out. Something going on having to do with your goals and gains moving towards retirement, you're going to need to figure it out. Having a child, you're going to need to figure it out. Right? This is a time period between now and the beginning of May, where you want answers for yourself, but you are dealing with other people, right? It is this oppositional energy. But you, within you, you're going to be able to really again, you might not have all the answers, but in a true Aries energy, you guys are the leadership energy, and really good leaders are responsible for the ideas and not necessarily the follow through. That's why they hire people to do the follow through. But to have that blueprint, right, at least loosely identified, and then it's just a matter of being able to share that with other people in your life, again, in a way that's assertive but not aggressive. And that's going to be the key to this transit. But the tension and the control is really going to be coming from that 11th house energy. So again, that 11th house is not only our friends, our goals and gains, things that happen in group work, but it's also, advances in science, things happening in medicine. And because it's Pluto, it's like maybe there's some sort of treatment that you have to go through, or maybe there's some sort of situation that needs addressing, right? That's very directly connected to your business. Maybe you want to expand your business, fifth house energy. 11th house energy rules technology, right? So maybe you have to upgrade the technology in your business. You have to upgrade something. There's got to be this addition to things, is what I keep, right? Is what I keep saying. So this addition, and Pluto wants to bring the healing. Pluto wants to bring the addition, and Mars is going to make it happen. Okay, so lots of themes to unpack there, my friends, but I hope this was helpful in some way to help you guys navigate. I'm sure I'm going to be talking about this again, but I kind of wanted to get in front of it now, especially today on the day where we're just starting this energy again. A lot of us have been feeling it for about 10 days to 2 weeks now. But it's going to be very intense this week. There is no question. So sidestep and rise above any argument. Don't engage. Don't engage. It's not worth it because this will end up passing. It's not the end of the world, by the way. Okay, it's not. This is going to be a very crazy ass week. Besides the elections, just this is going to be a little nuts, right? All right, my friends. I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Hi, Taurus. Okay, so let's first discuss the Pluto opposing Mars in your ninth house and third house. So Pluto is at that very critical 29th degree in the ninth house. And remember, 29 degrees of any energy, the shadow manifestation of that particular sign can rear its head. So we always want to be a little mindful of that. And then that Mars energy is in Cancer until tomorrow. It's in Cancer at also the 29 degree. So this opposition is exact today. Tomorrow, Mars moves into Leo and it will become an out of bounds opposition, which really does amp up the energy. I want you to think about, like, did you guys ever see what when people pull like the lotto balls, if you play lotto, like the scratch offs, whatever, and they pull the lotto balls out of the machine, you know how the balls are going everywhere? It's almost like a ping pong, right? Everywhere. That's the kind of energy from an out of bounds opposition. So especially between, Pluto and Mars, they're just different octaves of each other. So they're both very aggressive, right? They're aggressive energies. And I'm not saying this to be scary. I just, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And there is going to be a lot of growth on the other side of this. But you having that Mars energy at 29 degrees in the third house, in that Cancer energy, what is the shadow side of Cancer? Cancer can be very, very critical when it's feeling afraid. It could be very manipulative out of fear. It's out of fear. very reactive out of fear. There's no malice attached to this, but it's about feeling like honestly, your foundation is being threatened. You could certainly feel this way. Now, it's happening in the house of communication, opposing the ninth house. So the ninth house has to do with many things, right? It has to do with politics. So let me get that out of the way because, right, especially because of the week that we're going into. But I'm so glad I'm getting surgery on Tuesday for my hand. I'm going to be heavy anesthesia all day. I'm not going to even know what's going on. I'm happy for it, right? But anyway, so that Pluto energy controlling, there could be a lot of anxiety, right? Because Pluto holds a lot of anxiety. He holds things from the past. But man, is he controlling. He's controlling and he doesn't like to be controlled. He doesn't like to be told what to do. And when he's at the 29th degree in Capricorn, it's like, get out of my way. I know what needs to be done. I know what I need to do. And it's opposing that argumentative Mars energy in the third house of communication. Okay. So there can be this tension with your communication, the way you think, the way you process, right, between you and ninth house energy. Now, ninth house energy also happens to be the manifestation of father energy, the manifestation of second spouse energy. It has to do with the law, legalities, local governance, and politics. It's not the government. The government is more 10th house energy, although you have Capricorn in there, which rules government, right? So it could actually be any of those. But it's also higher education, higher mindedness, foreign land, foreign travel, marketing, advertising, launching, publishing, editing, getting something out there to the world, and it's the house of negotiations. Now, there can be, if you're in any sort of legal situation, and some of you may be, especially if it has to do with a relationship situation, because Juno is at 0 degrees in Scorpio in your seventh house. There could be some slight tensions there, right? Having to do with communication or the ability to negotiate things. But like those negotiations are very connected to your ability to feel secure in your life, whatever that means. Having to do with property, it could be having to do with money, it could have to do with, how some sort of family situation is worked out, right? This opposition can certainly kind of bring this up to the surface to look at, right? Ninth house is also a religion, organized or otherwise. It has to do with our belief system. Some of you may be realizing that you're changing in that ninth house area. Maybe you want to get more into your religion, or you want to change religions or change belief system or become more spiritual. Maybe you want to change majors if you're still in school, or you might want to make some changes to a product or some sort of service that you're trying to get out to the world. Maybe you're reconsidering your political affiliations. Maybe you are reconsidering, if you have a lawyer hired, maybe you're thinking about changing lawyers, like literally like making a change in that particular arena. But that's not the only energy that we have to talk about, because while Pluto is at 29 degrees Capricorn right now, he's only going to be there for another less than 2 weeks. So at that point, and this opposition is going to be rolling out through the beginning of May. So we have to talk about that. So Pluto in Aquarius, right? And then tomorrow, Mars goes into Leo. All right, within these next 2 weeks, it's going to be an out of bound opposition. So expect there to be very elevated energies. There is no question about it. Okay. Where we come in, being people who are in the know of the energy, right? Because we know what's going to be going on. We rise above. We do not drink the Kool-Aid. We don't get sucked down the rabbit hole. I am not having this argument with you. We are not doing this right now. And not in a nasty way, but even if you have to just like step away, you will be so much happier if you did. It's not worth it. It is not worth it, right? Just let the energies chill out, especially for these next 2 weeks. But then when those next 2 weeks go, we will have that Mars energy in Leo, and we will in your fourth house, and that Pluto energy will then be in the 10th house. So now we're talking about angular house opposition. Stuff's going to have to get done, Taurus. It's time to act. You've had Uranus in your energy forever and a day, it feels like, and you must be so happy that Uranus is finally leaving in August. Good riddance. Going into Gemini, right? But this energy of change and this revolutionary change and this need to have something new and novel and different has really been brewing in your energy for, I'm sure, especially the past couple of years. There's no question, right? Lots of changes in friendships and in situations having to do with work and perhaps even where you're living and what it is that you even want. Well, with this opposition in houses 4 and 10, Pluto again about change and transformation, and Mars gives you that energy. So you're going to be fighting for your emotional stability, your emotional security, circumstances connected to property or real estate, circumstances having to do with your first family. Now, for many of you, this is not going to be for all of you, Pluto is about life and death, change and transformation. Ninth house is manifestation of father energy, 10th house is manifestation of mother energy. So many of you may have some sort of changing circumstances having to do with mom or dad. And I hope none of you are resonating with this, but this is life. And it does seem like that will be something that could be coming up and something that could be challenging. And it does not necessarily mean a passing, but it does mean change. It means some sort of change in circumstances, things coming up. Within their energy. Again, it does depend on what's going on in your own personal chart, but I do just want to bring that to your attention. Now, what's also going to be happening is Mars. Once Mars goes into that fourth house, it is going to be sextiling. Let me say 1, 2, 3. No, it's going to be squaring rather Astraea. And so Astraea is where we have a very hard time letting go. And it's in the sign of Libra. And Libra is very connected to relationships, our boss, our bosses, our energetic output at work. It's going to be very late, and there's going to be 27 degrees in Libra in that sixth house of health, mental, physical, emotional, your daily work environment. So some of you are really going to be looking at your work and being like, have I overstayed this situation? You're going to be looking at your daily responsibilities in your relationship. And you'll be like, has everybody been showing up equally? Is this actually what I really want? Or is it time for change? And these are going to be very real questions. Now, Pluto happens to rule your Mars happens to rule your 12th house. So the 12th house is the house of self-sabotaging behavior, but it's also the house of feeling victimized and victimhood, right? And that Mars energy there. And then Pluto rules your 7th house, which is of relationships and other people that you deal with, whether it's your significant other or bosses. And so a lot of you are going to be looking at like, am I being taken advantage of in a relationship? Am I getting what I need? Am I self-sabotaging my job? Am I self-sabotaging my relationship? The opposition can bring either one. So you have to connect it to your life as you see fit. And of course, look at what else is certainly what else is going on in your life. But this is also going to be sextiling Uranus, and an out of degree sextile. So it's very interesting because you really are going to be very hell-bent on creating a new experience for yourself, especially between now and the beginning of May, right? And things are going to be happening no matter what. But with that Astray there, I just want to, I want you to be mindful because Astray is like, I know I have to let this go, but I just can't seem to do it. And in the sixth house, it's like the job. In Libra, it's the relationship. It's that kind of thing. So really leaning into where do you feel stuck? Where do you feel like you don't have the agency that you would really like to have? You know what I mean? And how can you create that for yourself? Because it will happen with a lot greater ease than you've been able to do it, right? Because there's been a lot of, I don't even want to say analysis paralysis, because it's not even that. For a lot of you, it's just been like, this is my life. I want to change it. I'm trying, but nothing's moving. Like, what the hell? Nothing's moving the needle. And it's because Uranus is very interesting, because Uranus was retrograde. Uranus is retrograde right now. He becomes a lot more Saturnian when he's retrograde. So there's like this slowness, very karmic energy about it as well. And he's been going retrograde a lot. So it's not like, boom, Uranus is in your energy and it's like big change and transformation all of a sudden. It does not work like that, right? But a lot of you have been feeling that sludge of the Uranus retrograde now. And now with this energy, everybody's going to be going direct, thank goodness, right? Within the next few weeks. And we're going to have all the heavy hitters moving this year, right? We're going to have Neptune moving this year, Uranus moving, Pluto moving. We're just going to be Saturn is going to be moving in June into Aries. So we have a lot of big movement, a lot of big change on tap here. But for you guys, these particular areas, right, having to do with this opposition. 12th house, are you being taken advantage of? Are you self-sabotaging something in that relationship, in that job? You're going to be looking at your inner base of operations, your emotional security. You're going to be looking at where you live. How is where you live? Do you wish to move? A lot of you might be really fighting with yourself about should I stay or should I go where it is that I'm going. And with Pluto in the 10th, Pluto's like, well, if you feel restricted in this space and you're not feeling it, it's time to go. Let's sit down and figure it out. Let's sit down and figure it out between now and May. How are we going to make this happen? It's not going to happen today, tomorrow. The ideas, the resolve, the agency, this is what's going to be developing over the next few months, guys. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. It's a little heads up there. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Jam. I hope you guys are doing great. Thank you so much for all of your well wishes having to do with my gimpy hand. Second surgery is on Tuesday. Had my first one the other day for tendon repair. And hopefully we'll get all these broken bones pinned up on Tuesday. And I'm very glad I'm going to have anesthesia on Tuesday because who wants to be awake for this election? Right. Anyway, let's talk about this opposition. I hope you guys are doing amazing today. And I do want to say going into this that while this, especially the next 2 weeks, are going to be very heightened with the energy, let me be very specific. There's going to be a heightened energy, and we're all going to be waiting for a shoe to drop, right? It's going to pass. Please, please, please do not get sucked down the rabbit hole or get sucked into anybody's nonsense or anything like that. For you guys, Pluto right now, as of today, 29 degrees in Capricorn in that eighth house, which Pluto's very exalted there. He doesn't play in the eighth house, right? It's all about change and transformation, other people's money, debt, taxes, endings and beginnings, things that have been kind of gripping you from the past that you haven't been able to totally let go of. Now, that doesn't even have to just be a relationship, Jem. This could certainly be just your sense of self-concept because it's opposing the second house, which is your self-esteem and your sense of self-concept. Now, that Mars energy, also at 29 degrees, remember 29 degrees represents the underbelly of the sign, right? So the underbelly of Capricorn is get out of my way. I know what I'm doing. I could do this. And the underbelly of Cancer is like, this almost, I'm not even going to say paranoid. This is not really paranoid, but it's this fear. It's absolute fear that you are going to be hurt. It's this fear that you are not going to have. In the second house, it's like, oh my gosh, am I going to have enough money? Am I going to be okay? Is everything going to be okay with my house? Is everything going to be okay with my family? Is everything going to be okay with my health? Second house, is everything, and it's that kind of energy, right? Just like as like a default, right? So it's just like really looking at these ideas. Now, when they oppose, Pluto's very controlling. He's very controlling. He doesn't like to be controlled. He doesn't like to be controlled by debt, taxes, intimacy, other people's ideas and ideologies. He's all about it if people are like agreeing with us and are on the same page as us. But he does not want to be controlled by a legal situation. He doesn't want to be controlled by something that deals with other. And that Mars energy opposing in the second house of sense of self, self-esteem, your values, what matters to you, the money in your bank, what it is that you own, your possessions, and what you attach the word of worth to, right? You are going to be ready to fight for things that matter to you. You are very clear. There's no lack of clarity. There's not. There might be a lack of clarity as far as where you see your life going, right? Because that Neptune energy is still retrograde in Pisces in the 10th house. Okay, fine, whatever. But you don't have a lack of clarity as far as like today, what it is that you feel like you need. That's there, but it is going to be opposing this Pluto energy. So there could be a lot of me versus we energy when it comes to finances with a significant other, with a business partner, having to do with anything connected to inheritance, insurance payouts, any sort of legal situation that's got a dollar amount attached to it, anything having to do with debt, taxes, and everything else that I mentioned, right? So this is something that is very mindful. Now, you're not going to be ready to have anybody play unfair. And what I like about this energy, I do have to say, and for a lot of you, I do feel like this is a thing. Let me give a little caveat here. What I was about to say. What I was about to say was that what I like about this is that you sort of just know. You just sort of know what it is that you need. And again, you might not be totally clear on how to bring it to yourself or what it even means, but that lack of clarity is not as present as it has been. And you haven't felt the need to have arguments about it. You might by tomorrow. Okay. And you might over the next 2 weeks because Mars is going into Leo in your third house. And that Leo energy is very connected to it's your children. It's you falling in love affairs, romance, your joy, though, your happiness, your business, wanting to take a chance in something. So with that Mars moving into Leo energy, it really is a very ping pong kind of energy. It's what I've been saying, not ping pong, pinball. It's like a pinball kind of thing. When we're talking about an out of bounds opposition, right? Because that Pluto energy is still going to stay at 29 degrees in Capricorn until the middle of the month. And then he's going to be moving into Aquarius. But tomorrow, Mars moves into Leo. So they're still going to be opposing each other, but it's going to be an out of bounds opposition. And that's where the energy can really sort of amp up a lot, right? So we're going to be looking at like a partner's money or what a partner contributes. And we're going to be really looking at what do our children need? What do we need in order to feel happy, in order to feel safe and secure? You're going to have the conversations. You're going to want to get stuff done. You're going to want to sit down and just say, okay, seriously, like we have to have this conversation once and for all about fill in the blank. Now, because it's third house, ninth house axis that we are talking about, having that negotiation about some sort of project that you're trying to launch, a move, having anything having connected to another country, foreign land, foreign travel, anything having to do with editing, marketing, advertising, politics, religion, organized or otherwise, higher education, higher mindedness, or it could even be a very necessary conversation pertaining to father energy in particular, right? Because the ninth house is the manifestation of father energy. So it gives us a lot of ideas what might be going on with father. And because Pluto's at 29 degrees in the eighth house, he is cusping and will be transitioning into that ninth house of father energy over the next 2 weeks. So if you still have your father, that might be a situation. This could also indicate a situation that's going on with a second spouse, where there's some sort of change going on there as well. Maybe they're moving, maybe there's some sort of legal situation that's going on in your energy, whatever it is going to be opposing this Mars energy. And Mars is that gumption, it's that energy to want to get things done, right? And now Mars in Cancer is very focused on emotional stability, and Mars in Leo really wants us to be happy and experience our joy. It's very connected to anything that we create, again, from our children to a business, to a monetizable talent, whatever it is. And that ninth house, excuse me, that Pluto is going to be going into that's cusping up has to do with negotiating. And this could also be very connected to the idea of investing, meaning people investing in you, people investing in your project, in your business, and something like that. And it is in this opposition. So this could certainly be a period of frustration, but understand that this period of frustration is meant to change something. Whatever is not being, and I said this in my last video, and a lot of people negatively responded to this, and I was very surprised. But I do understand. I mean, we don't want to hear any sort of negative thing. But unfortunately, I'm just here to read the astrology, right? Don't shoot the messenger. Pluto does not take away what's good for us, right? So if Pluto is taking something away, and also Pluto is very connected to this idea, particularly now, to this idea of addition. So what is being taken away was not going to be a good deal for us anyway. So if something fell through, if a business situation fell through, if a relationship fell through, if something that you really wanted to do ended up falling through, that job that you wanted, whatever it is, thank you. Sometimes rejection is protection, and this is definitely one of those times. Something was going to happen that was not for your highest good. So just be grateful that whatever didn't happen. Now it's just a matter of recalibrating and figuring out some sort of new strategy. And you will be figuring it out. I mean, this is a really good axis of strategy. Third house, ninth house axis, Mars going into that third, in 2 weeks, Pluto going into the ninth. That is the negotiation, the let's figure it out, let's strategize together, and then let's implement, you know? So it's not all bad, but it's sometimes we have to have things fall apart and things feel out of reach so that we can become more creative with how it is that we problem solve. And I want you to understand that, and please have faith in that. Please have faith in that, Gem, that answers will be coming. Even if you don't see it today, you have to keep your energy open and not closed and not glass half empty, okay? This is going to be a really good benefit for you, okay, at the end of the day. Now, we do have this Mars energy is also squaring Estrella, and Estrella is in the fifth house in the sign of Libra. So let's talk about Estrella does not know how to let go of things. And in the fifth house, it has to do with our joy, things that make us happy. It has to do with our children. It has to do with our monetizable talents in our business. It's in the sign of Libra. It could certainly have to do with relationship energy as well. And it's like not wanting to let go of something. Some of you might be having a hard time letting go of an idea because Mars is going between the second and the third house, letting go of an idea connected to a relationship where you end up saying, but you said, but you promised, but you said, but you promised. And it's like that thing that was promised, the thing that was said, maybe it's not rolling out the exact same way that you were initially promised by either that significant other or that business partner, you know, you could be, or even it could even be a doctor, it could even be a medical doctor, right? Because Libra does rule the seventh house of doctors, right? So, and with the moon transiting that Sagittarius energy in the seventh house, you know, there can be some sort of like disappointment that you're dealing with, but try not to hold on to that. It's like whatever's not working out right now, it's really, really not meant to work out. Now, what is happening as well, though, this Mars energy is sextiling Neptune. So Neptune sextiling Mars can make us really, really creative, coming up with some very good strategies, finding the words to have the conversations that we need to have with perhaps a sibling, an extended family member, some sort of business situation, our children, something going on with our business. You're going to have creative strategy that's very available to you. And this is going to be a very personal thing because Neptune is in the 25 degrees in the 12th house. It's a retrograde. So you're going to feel very kind of like strategizing for your own higher purpose is going to be very available to you, right? So don't question yourself. Please, please, please do not question yourself there, right? Because even though it's in the house of Neptune, that Uranus energy, did I say Neptune before? I meant Uranus. I hope I said Uranus. Uranus is at 25 degrees in Taurus, which is sextiling, but it's in the house of Neptune, which is why I think I was saying that. But don't question yourself, right? Because you are formulating a really solid idea about where it is that you're going and what your future is going to bring. If it might feel like a shadowy whisper right now, but it's going to start to solidify between now and May. You have to go through the steps. I mean, there's no question about that. You're going to have to do that, right? There is going to have to be some sort of action. And for you, the action is really going to be happening in the realm of negotiating and communicating and learning, also learning new things, right? With Mars in that third house, you might be realizing, I want to up my game. I want to learn some sort of new technology, some sort of new program. Maybe you want to get on a new social media platform, or you want to do something like that, right? Really leaning into that could be very, very helpful for you through this energy. So, yeah, I gave you a lot of information. We're going to probably be talking about this again. But again, the out of bounds opposition, popping around like a pinball game, right? For the next 2 weeks, right? So take a deep breath and just try to not engage in any sort of confrontational behavior with anybody. It's not worth it. Things will look different. And even in just a couple of weeks, even just when we get out of this temporary out of bounds opposition, things will ease a little bit, at least for a breather, at least for the time. Okay, guys? So thanks for hanging with me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Cancer. I hope you guys are doing great. Let's talk about this Pluto-Mars opposition. Let's talk about today, right? Pluto is at 29 degrees in Capricorn in your seventh house of relationships. And it could be a significant other, it could be your boss, it could be a good friend. Seventh house also has to do with your energetic output. It does also uh, it can indicate doctors as well. And that Mars energy is at 29 degrees in your first house. You guys are going to be feeling this opposition pretty strongly. And I'm not saying that to be scary because it's not bad. Okay. This is just, I just want to explain, especially over the next 2 weeks. We're going to be feeling this opposition all the way to the beginning of May. But we need to be careful starting tomorrow. Mars is in Cancer today. As of tomorrow, goes into Leo. And then it's going to be in what we call an out of bound opposition, which is kind of like, like a pinball machine is what I call it, right? Like the energy just kind of goes all over the place. So the first house is the path that you're walking on, right? It's it's your current plan, it's your current day to day, it's yourself, it's your sense of self, it's who you are. It's the version of you also that people understand before they really get to know your that sun ego consciousness kind of thing. It's very connected to your physical body. It's very connected to, and anything having to do with the head as well, right? Because the first house is ruled by Aries. Aries rules the head, including the mind, anything sort of like up to like where your thyroid would end, anything here. So that Mars energy is that fighter energy, that fighter spirit. And so it can create, when Mars is in that first house, for you guys, it can create feelings of vulnerability, can create a lot of anxiety. It certainly can do that. Because Mars and Pluto are just simply different octaves of each other. And with this opposition of Pluto, the energy and the anxiety can be coming from someone who you're in a legal situation with, someone who you're in a serious relationship, someone who you work for. It could have to do with, again, your energetic output, or it could even have to do with some sort of medical professional that you're dealing where you're having just sort of like this, not meeting of the mind, so to speak, right? Having to do with perhaps it could be treatment or something moving into the future. So there is that opposition there. And that's there today. But we can't just look at that because Pluto's only going to be in Capricorn for another couple of weeks, not even, right? Another week and a half. And then Pluto is going to be going into your eighth house, Aquarius energy, for the next 20 years. And tomorrow, Mars goes into Leo. Okay. But between now and when the middle of the month, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, we will be having this out of bounds opposition. So what does Mars in the second house mean, right? Second house is connected to your money, the money that's in your bank account, your sense of self, your self-esteem, anything that you attach the word worth to. Now, Mars is also very connected to our internal organs, our internal body, not our external. That's first house. Second house is internal, our organs, generally speaking, what is happening within. Second house also rules our mouth, and it also rules the food that we take in, right? So when we have a Pluto opposition with Mars like this in the second house, you can be extra sensitive to food, right? This could certainly happen. You might be very motivated to stop eating or stop drinking certain things, right? You can be very motivated to ultimately take better care of yourself. This could be pushing you to get very straight with your finances as well, right? Because that second house, eighth house and axis is very connected to our finances. So you'd certainly be moving into this space where you are looking at the money that you have, you're going to feel very motivated to grow your bank account. You're going to be very motivated to grow yourself in something. That could be having enough money for to start a family, to get married, to retire, whatever it is. And it's not even like you're not being gluttonous here. You're just like, I want to know that I have enough money to just be peaceful and happy. Peaceful and happy. A lot of you, because that Leo energy does represent children, it represents monetizable talents as well as entrepreneurial efforts. It does represent relationship as well. So very connected, Leo is very connected to relationship. So there could be some sort of argument within relationship about money and who's giving what, and how are things rolling out in relationship with this Pluto energy, especially for the next 2 weeks at that very critical degree, 29th degree in Capricorn. There could be a lot of tension when you sit down and discuss what's going on for the future with this other person. So it could be a significant other. It could be, again, someone that you're entwined in some sort of legal situation with, or it could certainly also be a boss. With that Mars energy in there opposing that Pluto also, you could be really like, not feeling like you're appreciated at work. You could certainly feel like you're not being seen for everything that you contribute, for everything that you bring to the table. And that could be a bit disheartening for you. Now, it's nothing that I really want you to be very reactive to, but rather use that Mars energy to figure out, how can I make myself stand out? How can I level up my skill set, right? That's a very, very healthy way of being able to look at that energy. And of course, with Jupiter and Gemini all the way through the beginning of June in that 12th house, this is an excellent time between now and the beginning of June 2025 for you to be studying behind the scenes, for you to be learning something new behind the scenes. This is an excellent energy to sort of fine tune what kind of skill set you sort of want to bring forward, at which point in that beginning of June, Jupiter will then be moving into your sign for 1 year, and that will be very good. So consider this to be a lot of like preparation, if that makes sense, right? Between now, especially, and the beginning of the spring. When Pluto goes into that eighth house, again, we've been discussing this, he's very exalted in that eighth house for sure. That's where he lives. He loves the change and transformation in there. But what's going to be changing and transforming? Well, everything eighth house. And this is a 20-year transit, guys, so it's not like one and done. But what happens, when Pluto goes into that eighth house, especially when it's going to be opposing Mars, because Mars wants action. Pluto in the eighth house is changing things when it comes to sex and intimacy, when it comes to other people's money, when it comes to marriage or divorce, life and death, debt, taxes, other people's money, the stock market, investments, anything having to do with insurance payouts and inheritances and all of those kinds of things. These things could certainly be coming to the forefront, especially over the next 6 months. But there can, at the very least, be this sort of facing off with, what do you have financially? What do they have financially, right? It's you versus somebody else in that arena. Now, that Mars energy, that fighter energy in the second house, which rules the inner body, you might be finding that you're fighting something off when it comes to your health, right? And that Pluto energy opposite, cusping in that seventh into the eighth house energy, Aquarius, Pluto going into Aquarius, has to do with advances in medicine. It also represents circumstances that come up with our health that are a little out of the box and out of the ordinary. So whenever we're talking about anything with autoimmune, because autoimmunes are weird, right? We have a lot of autoimmune things going on. Those are very Aquarian. And with Pluto going in there, in that space, there could be this revelation that you have some sort of immune situation going on, but that you're going to be able to get treated for it. But these are the kinds of things that we can expect with that Mars energy transiting in the second house. One of the themes, not the only theme, opposite that Pluto energy. For some of you, it could be connected to your health, like we just discussed, but it could also be very connected to your money as well as relationship. But specifically with relationship, the opposition is going to come more in the way of it being connected to finances and how are things going to roll out and what matters to you and what do you need versus what are they willing to give and what is it that they're looking for, and then trying to find some sort of happy medium. Now, inside of all of this, we do have Mars is going to be squaring Estrella in the fourth house in the sign of Libra. So fourth house energy, of course, has to do with home, property, real estate. Where are we living? Where are you living now? It's connected to your first family, your emotional stability. And in the sign of Libra, does connect to, well, Libra is ruled by Venus. Could certainly be connected to a mother energy just as easily as a significant other energy. For some of you, maybe the consideration of working from home. Australia, though, is really very representative of our inability to let go of something that we know we need to let go of. It's like something has reached an expiration point and we need to release it. And the square with Mars is really going to be like, yes, I know I need to make this change if I'm working from home, or I know I have to move, or I know I have to make this change, this decision for the sake of a relationship, for good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it is. That Australia energy is really going to be pushing you. Now, at the same time, that same Mars energy is going to be sextiling Uranus in your 11th house of goals and gains in the sign of Taurus, which has to do with your money. So a lot of you are going to be very motivated to get a new job, to at least be working differently, something connected to if there's any sort of legal situation that you're sort of dancing with, that will ultimately end up impacting your finances moving forward. There is going to be a very supportive energy in that space for you guys. So, which is good, but it's like something that you don't want to let go of, right? There is this thing that you've been holding on to, right? We've all been doing it, Cancer, right? You're not the only set. Everybody's been doing it, but where are you holding on to it, right? And in that, right, that's that seventh house into the eighth house energy. That Pluto energy is very controlling. He grips onto things like it's like I can't let go of this, right? I can't let go of this. And it's gripping in the sign of Capricorn initially for the next 2 weeks, which is your career, your public reputation, your long-term goals, your standing in the world. And then into that Aquarius energy having to do with your future. So there's something that you're needing to let go of in order to create the change, either in that relationship or in that work situation, your ability that's going to end up ultimately feeding your future, right? But it's something that you've been having a hard time releasing. And that's what this transit is all about. It's about being very supportive in trying to release and trying to let go, right? So you also do have this working with the South Node is transiting in your fourth house until the beginning of January as well. So this idea of letting go of something within the home. Your mother could be letting go of something. Somebody might be moving out. There could be some sort of release, something leaving, right? That home sector. Again, it could be you. You might be deciding to move. There could be some sort of leaving, having to do with like, there could be a family member, it certainly can be that, or it could certainly be the letting go of the way that you've been with someone within your family. Now, whether it's your first family or you're married into family, whatever it is, it's this like letting go, and not in a malicious way, but in a way where the letting go or the release has to be done in order for you to be able to move forward in a healthy way. Now, because it's fourth house energy, it could have to do with children, it could have to do with a family member. But it is this built up, and the energy can be a little tricky, not even going to lie, right? I mean, Mars does rule, your first house, everybody's first house, but it also does rule your 10th house, right? So your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world, your long-term goals. That's where the North Node is. The North Node is beckoning you to let go of something, step out of your comfort zone and do something different. Right. And so there is going to be this fight within you for some sort of new position at work, to create some sort of new normal and new experience for yourself, having to do with your future. There's just no question about it. Now that Pluto energy does rule your fifth house. So fifth house has to do with children, falling in love, love affairs, romance, your own business, your own joy. Juno is in there. So at 0 degrees. So it's pretty important. And the sun is in there as well. So this could be very connected to a relationship or some sort of commitment. And So some of you are going to be deciding, that's it. I need to be done with this. I need to get this divorce. Or I know the divorce might challenge my children, but this is something that ultimately I have to do at the end of the day. Or some of you are going to be deciding to get married. All right. I mean, it's the other side of that, right? Because that Scorpio energy ruled by Pluto is also very deeply committed as well. And Juno represents marriage, right? So a lot of you are going to be in that space, very committed to your children in a different way, very committed to the idea of having children, or coming to the decision that you do not want to have children, or there being some realization that you have to set very specific boundaries with children as well. Looking at this idea of boundaries, because Vulcan is going to be sort of sandwiched between Juno and the Sun there. So your commitment, right, to anything that the sun represents, right? So that relationship, a child, something that manifests, something needs to end. There has to be some sort of changing out of energies when it comes to how something is dealt with. Um, you do want to check on the welfare of your kids as well right now. Just do a little check-in and make sure um that their mental health is okay and that their physical health is okay. You do, if you're able to certainly do a little check-in with them as well. Um, Especially as Mars transits through the sign of Leo in the second house. Up to this point, especially for the past like month and a half, there's sort of been this trine, right, to that house. Now it's going to be going into a square. So you do want to just be a little mindful of that. Anything else I wanted to talk about with this? Venus is in Sagittarius, very supportive of you being able to grow, to expand yourself. She's the baby benefic in the sign that represents Jupiter, which is the major beneficial energy based on growth in that sixth house. So this can actually be quite nice for your work arena, right? Definitely quite nice for your work arena, but there can be some stress when it comes to good for the work arena, but at the same time, you feeling like it might be appreciated. And that could be the very motivation that you need in order to create the change that I do see being supportive, right? You're very supportive of that energy, but there's definitely going to be a lot of change for you guys. There's no question about it. Your life's going to look very different next year at this time. But hopefully that was helpful. Thank you so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's talk about this Pluto-Mars opposition. Let's start with today. Because today we have Pluto at 29 degrees in Capricorn in your sixth house, and it's opposing Mars at 29 degrees in your 12th house. So this opposition is very strong, right? Everybody's talking about it, but it's going to be especially strong for the next 2 weeks. And the reason is because while Mars is in Cancer today, he goes into Leo tomorrow, which will be creating an out of bound opposition, especially until Pluto goes into Aquarius, right? So this is going to be about a 10-12 day, very, very heightened energy. Now, for you, it's happening again between that sixth house and the 12th house. So Pluto in the sixth house, having to do with the day-to-day work environment. It could also have to do with your health, Leo, right? I've been talking about this. A lot of our Leo friends have been dealing with and Pluto at the 29th degree can sort of bring things to the surface. So it's like all of a sudden out of nowhere, especially like the past couple of months, things happening, right? Especially like the past 6 months, things coming out of nowhere, right? Connected to health, mental, physical, or emotional. And it's opposing that Mars in the 12th house, which has to do with, self-sabotaging behavior, but it also has to do with feeling victimized, being victimized. It's a very spiritual house as well. It's where the veil is very thin between worlds. It's the house of being unconditionally loving and giving, which is why we consider it the house of the nurse. It's the house of prison, of rehab, anything that's meant to help us kind of like get better, right? And be supported and feel supported, right? But the 12th house is also our subconscious. And when Mars hangs out in that 12th house, man, could we drive ourselves a little bananas, right? We could worry about so much because Mars rules weaponry and war. And and fighting, right? And but the 12th house is the house of the hidden. It's the house of the subconscious. So we could be our own worst enemy, especially during hours of sleep. This is the kind of thing because the 12th house rules our sleep. So we could get up at like, that 3 o'clock in the morning, right? That quintessential like nine of swords energy, right? It's like, oh, where am I going? What am I doing? It's kind of like not responding well to the external stress of things, but it worrying you a lot in off hours, right? Not that it doesn't bother you during, hours where you're working and you're among people, but there's something about it that's just been really, really heightened when everybody goes home and you're by yourself and it's just like you and your pillow, and there could be a lot of concerns and a lot of consternation around these particular types of energies. Now, additionally, some of you may be feeling like you're not being treated very fairly at work, right? Because that Pluto at the 29th degree, remember, it's that anaretic degree, that last crucial degree of 29 does bring out the shadow manifestation. 29 degrees brings out the shadow manifestation of a sign. And so when we're talking about Capricorn, right, that's just like very much, I can do it, get out of my way. I know what I'm doing. I can control this. I can handle this. I got it. I got it. But, with that Mars energy at that same 29 degrees in Cancer, it's almost like you're afraid. You may have been going through a period where you've been a little afraid, or at least a little trepidatious to admit that maybe you're not okay, that you are not doing as well as maybe you've been kind of the face that you've been putting out there, right? So that could be on the one hand. The other hand, it could be that you're feeling like you're just not being very appreciated at work. Leos and Cancers are kind of dealing with that right now. Um, not feeling seen, not feeling heard for the talents, gifts, and abilities that you bring to the table, or at least feeling like perhaps you're dealing with somebody who is not entirely fair, right? That could certainly be happening as well in this energy, where you might have something going on and you're not getting the understanding that you would ideally like. Now, it could certainly have to do with that, but it doesn't only have to do with that. So it'd certainly be very connected to some sort of either relationship or just your general plans for the future, where you thought you had these plans, right? Well, you had these plans, this idea, at least a loose idea of where it is that you thought you were going, right? And now you're realizing because of X, Y, and Z, plans need to be tweaked. They definitely need to be changed up, and so you're in that period of transition. You may not even realize that you're in the period of transition, right? It depends what degrees your placements are at. Some of you may not be feeling this for another month or two, right? But it's this opposition is going to be going through the beginning of May, okay? But let's talk about this opposition a little more deeply, because as of tomorrow, Mars is going into your sign. And so Mars in your sign, very fiery, right? First of all. Second of all, Mars is very exalted in the first house. He's very strong. He's very powerful, right? Because he naturally lives there in everybody's chart. And he is this like, get out of my way. I want to take control of this. I am a leadership energy. I have energy. What are you going to be having energy for? To be happy, to be joyful. There could be some arguments about children or with your children. There could be some challenges, in that space. They can be just not seeing eye to eye in certain things. It could certainly be, you being the aggressor towards them or them being the aggressor towards you, and you feeling like you need to defend yourself. This could certainly be because Mars is cusping up to the seventh house, which, in the middle of November, just about 10 days from now, we're going to be 2 weeks, maybe 12 days, dealing with that Pluto energy in Aquarius now for the next 20 years. So there could be this face off, right? Literal face off when it comes to a significant other, a boss, your energetic output in work. Some of you may be in the space, like maybe everything is great in your relationship, everything is great in every other area, but you're realizing that something's got to give, having to do with the way you work. Right. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you don't like what you're doing, but that you want to do it differently. Maybe you want to tweak it to work less, or you want to work more, or you want to work differently. It could certainly be that having some sort of, butting of the heads with a boss, a significant other. But it's specifically going to be about the future, and it's going to be about the fact that things need to be different. Now, you may have demands put on you, Leo. And these demands that are going to be put on you are not going to be things that you really want to actually engage with right now. But the demands are going to be coming from people who want to have this future experience with you, but you're not really going to be down with it the way that they really want you to be down with it. And that's where it's going to be a little tricky, because that Mars in the first is really going to be having you fight for your path and the path that you want, right? And we have to really understand, we all know, oh, there's a difference between being assertive and aggressive. And we know all of those phrases that we say, right? But this is one transit where it's like, seriously, we have to really embrace that. Be assertive, have your boundaries, don't bother fighting. Don't bother fighting. This is the thing. The energy is going to be so raw and so high, especially for the next 2 weeks. But it's going to be intermittently, because Mars is going to go retrograde again, and it's going to dip back into Cancer. And then it's going to go forward again into Leo, and it's going to be doing this little dance. And it's still going to be within this 10-degree opposition all the way until the beginning of May. So there's going to be this tension between like a me versus we energy. Am I being taken advantage of? Am I sacrificing my own, happiness for this situation? So that I need to be responsible in this particular way. I need to show up in this particular way. It's very interesting, Leo. I'm getting a very tired energy from you. I don't know if that makes sense, right? It's like there's a almost a palatable exhaustion in your energy. Now, let me be even more clear about that. You guys typically aren't, right? I mean, you guys are fire. You have very good energy. It's more about feeling mentally drained, right? Because there's been a lot going on for you guys this past year in different kinds of relationships, having to do with some health scares for a lot of you. Absolutely. With that Pluto energy being in the last decan this whole year, but 2 years even, really, right? In the sixth house of your health and body maintenance. Well, now, by the way, that Pluto at 29 degrees, it could really bring something very directly up to the surface. Now, because it's going to be opposing at the 29th degree, that 12th house, first house cusp, I do want to address this for those of you who need to hear this. First house is ruled by Aries. Aries rules our external body, but it also rules our head specifically. Okay, anything really up to like here, right? So we're talking about like thyroid glands, anything having to do with the mouth, nose, ears, eyes, anything to do with the brain, the mind, anything having to do with our actual head. Also, first houses rule our external appearance, opposing the seventh house, which rules our skin. So it could even be some sort of challenges coming up, with our skin, or there's some sort of rashes. There, you and one other sign are really needing to contend with issues that could very well be coming up, having to do with this. This could even be the kind of thing where like anxiety is creating circumstances that feel very physical for you. Depression could be manifesting as very real things for you. Now, this is the thing. You guys are ruled by the sun. You guys like to be happy. You like to have a good time. You like to hang with your friends. You just like to have fun. So this is not a comfortable energy for you. It's not. You guys are a sign where you take fun very seriously, as you should. I think we all should, right? But it's that. But also, what's very important to you right now, especially with that Mars energy in Leo, Leo is, you know, uh, it's our strength, right? It's definitely connected to our strength. Leo is a very strong energy, but ego. And it's very connected to like, what do I need on an ego level in order to feel okay being in this? And somebody's going to be challenging that. Somebody's going to be challenging your sense of self and your ego. They're going to be challenging you that head on. And they're going to be wanting you to do things that you might not feel ready or really want to do right now. Even if it's things that you've been talking about. It's kind of like you're in this situation right now where you feel like you just need to allow some time to pass in order to let something pass. And then you're going to make a decision. Except it seems like someone is, or a circumstance is, putting pressure on you. It might even be yourself. You might even be just putting pressure on yourself to create some sort of big change. So it's like you're living your life, you're doing your thing day to day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but you know this larger change needs to happen and you don't really think about it right now, but something's making you think about it. If it's not yourself, it's certainly a person or an external situation. And that's where that tension is going to be coming up for you. Now, this Mars energy is also going to be squaring Estrella. Estrella is in the sign of Libra, which does represent relationships, our bosses, our energetic output. Um, Very connected to Venusian energy as well. So money, it could be our sense of self as well. In the third house of thought, thinking, how it is that we process things. Third house is also our siblings, our extended family, our neighbors, and our neighborhood. So it's like holding on too much to something, right? So there might be this holding on to, for example, and I'm just giving this as an example, holding on too much to a situation because of a family situation. Like, let's say you're in an unhappy marriage. I'm just giving this as an example, but you're not willing to leave because of your in-laws and the family that you have and where you live and your house and the whole jam that you got into. And it's like, here we are. And oh my gosh, if I leave, that means changing all of this. And all of that is exceedingly daunting, right? This could certainly be that. Um, there could be some sort of stubbornness as well connected to something connected to family or extended family. And it could have something to do with money as well. Again, just because we have it kind of cusping there between that Libra and Scorpio energy, that could certainly be a situation where, again, it's a square. There could be some sort of conflicting energy with Mars. It could be an argument about money pertaining to like siblings or extended family. It could even be an argument about money within a relationship. There could be an argument about, the argument could be about money, but could also be somehow families involved in it. I don't know if that makes sense, but very specific message there. Now, um, Mars also rules your ninth house of negotiating, marketing, advertising, launching, publishing, foreign land, foreign travel, manifestation of father energy as well. That Mars energy is lighting up your ninth house, which is where the North Node is, which is where Chiron is, which is where Hygeia is hanging out right now, retrograde. So, there might be some sort of situation going on with the health of a father. Um, but there could also be something going on perhaps with your health where you're asking a father figure for help there as well. It could certainly be that, or even a second spouse energy, but it is lighting that up. Ninth house is also higher education, higher mindedness. So you may be getting the stroke where you want to go back to work, or you want to go back to school. You want to make change in some sort of ninth house area is also politics, law, legalities, local governance, right? So this could even be connected to some sort of legal situation that ends up growing out of these other circumstances that I'm mentioning here. Now, Pluto is also going to be highlighting your fourth house of home, your inner base of operations, your emotional security, property, real estate, anything connected to your first family. Things connected to your mom, your mother energy. There being this, it's in Scorpio. Scorpio rules divorce as well as marriage. So I feel like for a lot of you, there is going to be a lot of, it's almost like Wheel of Fortune energy is what I'm getting. It's like, a turning point has been reached. So which direction are you going to go? And that for a lot of you, it's like you have to pick a path. You can't dance around it. You can't wish it away because you've been able to do that for a bit now, and this opposition is not going to allow that to happen. And again, there are going to be periods. This is not like it's happening today or tomorrow or even this week. The energies are definitely going to be high this week. But like I said, this opposition is going to be very active between now and the beginning of May. We have so much other stuff going on this year that I will be talking about. Saturn's moving, Uranus is moving, Neptune is moving, the nodes are moving, everybody's moving. So life is going to look very, very different next year at this time. And the question that you have to ask yourself is, what do you really want that to look like? Because what you can't do is stick your head in the sand and just wait for things to pass. I know it's not fun to have to address a lot of these things, but some sort of like finality has to be made. And again, it does not have to be today or tomorrow, but this is something that you're going to realize has to be worked out between now and the beginning of May. You have a lot of energies going on between now and then. Some of you may not even be feeling the energies that I'm talking about, but they will suddenly appear right within the next couple of weeks, at least initially. None of this should be scary, guys, because remember, Pluto, whatever Pluto takes away, as I mentioned, Pluto takes things away and then he brings things in its place. And it's always to level us up. And Mars always has our best interests at heart. He fights for us. He's not looking to fight against us, but we just have to remember that. And we have to remember that we can be very confrontational and we could be very argumentative in this energy. There is no question about it. And very specifically, when it comes to daily responsibilities, circumstances within relationships, and how things are going moving forward between you and a key relationship. That is the most obvious thing that I see. But with that Pluto energy leaving the sixth house, again, I hope you're all getting your health checked. A lot of you may be making decisions based on health factors. That may be coming up at the same time. Obviously, that's not going to impact all of you. It depends on what's going on in your chart. But for the collective, that is what I have for you. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Virgo. I hope you guys are doing great. So let's get into your Pluto square, your Pluto opposition to Mars. So Pluto's at 29 degrees, very critical degree in the sign of Capricorn in your fifth house, and Mars is at the very critical 29th degree in the sign of Cancer in your 11th house. So let's unpack this. Fifth house energy having to do with relationships, falling in love, love affairs, romance, very connected to our children, circumstances going on with our children, monetizable talents, your own business, anything that brings you joy and happiness, anything like that. Now, Pluto's very controlling, and when we have Pluto in the fifth house, we're very stuck in our ways, right? We could be very stuck in our ways because Leo is the natural ruler of the fifth house as well as the sun, and Leo's the landlord, the sun is the ruler. And mixed in with that Capricorn energy having to do with like stability and long-term goals, you can be very sort of, this is the way that I know I need it in order to feel good about where it is I'm going. Now, whether that has to do with a business, whether that has to do with a situation going on with your children, Pluto is a controlling energy and it's very controlling at the 29th degree, right? But he's also very anxious at the same time. He's got anxiety, maybe a tinge of depression, but it's really more of an anxious energy, particularly opposing the 11th house, which is a Uranian ruled energy, and Uranus rules that the electricity, right? It can make us feel very sort of that nervous Uranian energy is opposing. But that Mars energy in Cancer, it's not very strong. It gets much stronger tomorrow when it goes into Leo. But that Mars energy in Cancer, it's a fighter energy. And when it's in Cancer, it's fighting for a home, it's fighting for emotional stability. Be feeling like we have to fight for our kids, fighting for the future of our kids in the 11th house. There could be a lot of tension around friends, trying to resolve things having to do with friendships, group think, group work, anything to do with that, anything having to do with technology, right? Again, Mars is a warrior energy. We have a lot of energy wherever he is, but he's a fighter. He rules weapons, he rules fire, he rules war, right? He's just a different octave of Pluto. Right? I mean, because Mars is the original ancient ruler of Scorpio, and then in the early 1930s, Pluto became the ruler of Scorpio. And a lot of astrologers still consider them both to be the ruler of Scorpio. Either way, they're just kind of different octaves of each other, both of which have a lot of energy and a lot of desire for confrontation, and neither really likes to be controlled, right? That Mars energy is very connected to this idea of being a leader and having the energy to go after what it is that one wants, right? And in the sign of Cancer, it's what are you going after? You're going after emotional security for your future. You're going after, you know, any sort of friendship that's not, team Virgo, right? I mean, and anything that's sort of really making you feel very contrary. Some of you may be wanting to make amends in this energy. Some of you may be ending friendships. I mean, this could certainly be it. We would have to be careful of having any sort of confrontational energies with, anyone who we're in a group with, or any sort of friends, older siblings as well, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, stepchildren, grandchildren are also in that 11th house Cancer energy for you. But with that Pluto at 29 degrees, again, the 29th degree is that very critical degree. It's very controlling, and it typically shows up as the underbelly of whatever sign it's in. And the underbelly of Capricorn is very like, get out of my way, I can do this. And in Cancer, it's like, I know, this is not going to be a good thing. It's not a paranoia. It's more of like a real worry, right? What are we going to do in the future? This isn't working out. What is the family going to do? How are we going to pull this off for the family? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to? All of that's very real. All of it's very real. But it's again in the sign of Cancer, because Cancer is ruled by the moon. There's more emotion involved than fact. So we could be feeling very vulnerable, right? Because that moon energy does rule your 11th house. Now, in the same token, Mars rules your 8th house of endings and beginnings, change and transformation, debt, taxes, other people's money, inheritance, insurance payouts, absolute commitment. It also rules divorce, right? Now, something very, very destiny driven is happening here, my friends, in that 8th house for you, having to do with Pluto, because you also have the North Node in there in Aries. It's retrograde right now at 6 degrees in that 8th house, but something that's making you step out of your wheelhouse, out of your comfort zone for a fresh path, a new beginning in that 8th house. So some of you could be moving. Some of you may be going through. Chiron is in there as well. You might be dealing with some sort of illness. You might be dealing with some sort of new level of anxiety, depression. There could be some sort of challenge in there. It's also in there with Hygeia. Chiron and Hygeia together in Aries. There could be some sort of manifestation of an illness in the physical body, or some sort of circumstance there that does need some sort of addressing, right? It could certainly be. Particularly, it's opposing second house Black Moon Lilith. So, especially if it's something that you're doing that's manifesting some sort of challenge. So what maybe you're eating the wrong food, or you're drinking too much, you're doing something like that that's really challenging your well-being, something that like that really does need to stop. Anything that spending money, spending too much money. Black Moon Lilith is that blind spot where we end up self-sabotaging ourselves. So it doesn't have to be any sort of like, drink, food, anything like that. It could simply be money, because second house is the money that you make from the work that you do, with Black Moon Lilith in there. And Estrella, Estrella doesn't know when to say no. Estrella doesn't know when, we have to stop doing something, right? And it's opposing the house of debt. It's opposing the house of other people's money, right? And so with that North Node energy in there, the fact that it's going to be rocked because that's the place that Mars rules in your chart. Mars has a lot of gumption. You really want to get in front of your debt. You really do want to get in front of any sort of tax situation, any sort of situation like that. You want to save money. You're thinking about these things, but at the same time, life is such that you're likely spending more money than you should be right now. And so it's this dynamic where it's like, all right, well, I need this money for life, but I really want this money for the future, and just trying to sort of navigate the difference between those two things. Also, Pluto rules your third house of siblings, extended family, your neighbors, your neighborhood. It has to do with your ability to learn new things as well. Third house is very like learning something from like the grassroots up, right? Learning something new, something different. It's very connected to teaching, especially through high school, not so much college. Learning something new, as I just said, but not really on a college level. That's more ninth house, Sagittarius. Um, this could be because it's the sign of Scorpio and it is the house of neighborhood, maybe looking for a new lease somewhere, a mortgage, right? Because Scorpio is very connected to mortgages and banks, could certainly have to do with that. there could be a lot of focus on that. Maybe you're not really happy living where you're living right now. It's like fine for now, but not forever. And you're in this space of just trying to figure things out. And with that Uranus energy, by the way, is at 25 degrees in the sign of Taurus in the ninth house of foreign travel. But it could just be as simply even just out of your zip code. But a lot of you may be thinking about like just making this grand move and a lot more seriously over the course of the next year because Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini in August. But, as it is right now, we do have it sextiling this Mars. It's an out of bound sextile, but it is still a sextile nonetheless. So it's this energy to really want something different, want something more. Now, that Uranus can also be activating a very strong desire to publish or market something or get something out there, or to become employed in higher education, or to do something in law, legalities, local governance, anything having to do with religion, organized or otherwise, anything having to do with foreign land and foreign travel. That sextile, though, is really going to be amping up your energy for something new and different in that area. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact, though, that like your life is what it is today and that you're needing to do what it is that you need to do today, right? So this is something that you're really going to have to just simply, and not so simply, maybe lean into, right? Leaning into this. Now, Pluto, just within about 12 days or so, is going to be going into the sign of Aquarius in your sixth house. So then the opposition is going to be between houses 6 and 12. So the sixth house is your daily work environment, as well as your health, as well as your pets. So Pluto in that sixth house is going to be creating a lot of change for your future. Things are going to be different. They're going to be out of the box for you. They're going to be very fundamentally different. And so even if it's dealing with like your sixth house day-to-day work environment, because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus rules technology and the masses, you may be doing something online, addressing the masses, doing something to like a bunch of people. It could certainly have to do with that. Sixth house is also health. So you want to make sure you do want to make sure with Pluto transiting your sixth house, you really do want to make sure that you're getting your health checked out. Anyone who's having Pluto transit their second house, as well as their sixth house and their 12th house, they want to be very diligent with their health. And I'm just saying that as a basic um, blanket statement. I don't know what's in your chart, what might be squaring what, if you're, what other energies are going on, but for sure. Now, and Pluto going into the house of health in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius does rule autoimmune issues, neurological sort of issues, things that are sort of out of the box that we don't typically hear about, right? And it's that kind of thing, right? Very connected to health and body maintenance. 12th house, which is opposing it, which is where that Mars is going to be. That's the house of the nurse. It's the house of caretaking. It's also the house of prisons. I could say that it's prisons, and it's also rehabs. So it can happen a lot of times when, we have an opposition like this between 6th and 12th house. Maybe you're realizing you have an addiction, you want to go to rehab, and you end up kicking some sort of really challenging habit. You've been teetering maybe in not the right way with the law, because the sixth house also does rule like initially a legal situation going awry, right? So if there's some sort of, leaning into the dark side of Pluto in that sixth house, it could be some sort of situation that you end up 12th house incarcerated, right? Could certainly have to do with that. I don't want that to happen to any of you, but it could certainly happen in that way as well. In the same way, there could be like a lot of caretaking energy, right? Where sixth house could be some sort of illness, and it doesn't even have to be yours, maybe someone in your life, right? Someone in your life where you're stepping up and you're going to ultimately end up helping to be some sort of caretaker, right? Because that Mars energy gives you a lot of gumption to achieve, right, in that space. And in the space of the 12th house, it's the house of the nurse. Now, it's in the sign of Leo. So Leo does rule our children, it rules significant other, it rules our business. So a lot of you could be really, really focused on starting a business or course correcting within a business that you have if it doesn't have to do with health. Some of you may be going through, by the way, there could be some real changes going on. I do want to just say this, Virgo, in the life of one of your children, especially your oldest child. Pluto energy can bring a lot of change and transformation as it transits from the fifth house into the sixth house. So this could certainly have to do with either their career, their long term, their health. It could even be a little bit of both. So in addition to getting yourself checked out, you do want to make sure that your kids are getting checked out. And again, I am not saying this to be scary at all. I'm a big fan of to be forewarned is to be forearmed. We always want to get in, uh, ahead of certain things as they're coming in. But that Pluto in the sixth house, we really do want to pay attention to that. Anything else that I really wanted to talk about? Um, Pluto is going to be sextiling Neptune, very creative energy. Um, that could be a very dreamy energy. The only thing that I do want to say about that is between the fifth house and the seventh house. Right now is, and it's going to be sextiling actually for, I want to say another year and a half. If you're meeting somebody new in relationship and or getting some sort of new job, you want to make sure that that person or that contract is walking its talk. No, contract can't walk its talk, but you want to make sure that you are not, because there can be a tendency to see things through rose-colored glasses with this particular type of transit a little too easily. And this is not to say that you guys are blind, ignorant, for goodness sake, you're a Virgo, you're very smart, right? It's not about that. It's like the information will not be totally available to you, if that makes sense. So you could get into a relationship where you think it's going to be this, that, that. And I'm not saying that it won't be, but you will not have all of the information that you think you have, right? Or you'll think you know more than you actually know about a person or about a position. And it's only going to be because this is what's being presented to you. Right. But, you could easily find out that there's more to it, that there's more going on. And again, because Pluto right now is 29 degrees, come the middle of November, it's going to be going into that Aquarius energy. It's still going to be very low in the degree. So it's going to be cusping up to the fifth house, but it's going to still be in the sixth house of your day-to-day work environment. It's still going to be vibing the relationship energy. And it's going to be 2 houses away from Neptune, which is very foggy and very illusory. So we just want to be a little careful there. Make sure you read the fine print. You don't want to commit too quickly to anybody, in relationship. You just want to take it slow. Take it slow. I'm not saying don't take it. I'm saying take it slow. And just make sure that you're really sure about what it is that you're dealing with. So that is what I have for you guys. I hope this was helpful. I'm sure we will be coming back around and discussing this more at various points in this transit, but I did want to give this to you at least to get started, right? And to sort of be on the lookout and the vibe out for the energy that's coming in. Okay. All right, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye. Hey Libra, I hope you guys are doing great. So let's talk about this big opposition having to do with Pluto and Mars. So as of today, on the 3rd, we have Pluto is at 29 degrees in Capricorn and Mars is at 29 degrees in Cancer. Fourth house, 10th house opposition. So those angular houses always call us to do some sort of action. 29th degree, that critical degree, typically does manifest as the underbelly or the shadow manifestation of whatever sign it's in. So the shadow manifestation of Capricorn could be very stubborn. It could be, no, this is the way I need it. This is the way I want it. This was my plan. And this is the way I think it needs to be. It's that kind of thing. And it could often also be kind of like, get out of my way. I know what I want, right? And I know what I need to do. And in the fourth house, it could have to do with something connected to family, property, home, real estate, your emotional security. It could have to do with, anything having to do with moving, anything like that. But it would also be very connected to children, especially because it's cusping between that fourth and fifth house. It would be very connected to children. And it's feeling like this is the way I want it. This is the way that it needs to be done. And that Mars energy in Cancer, which does rule home, and again, property, real estate, everything that we were just saying, that's our warrior energy. And at the 29th degree in Cancer, it can make us feel very vulnerable. Shadow manifestation of Cancer can be vulnerability to the point of not being afraid to actually be manipulative if we have to. There's actually no malice involved in it. It's more about lashing out because we're so afraid of something. Right. It's that's the underbelly of Cancer, is that unbelievable vulnerability because it is ruled by the moon. Even if that vulnerability isn't completely based in fact, it's very real to us because it is a moon ruled energy. Now that's only going to be going on until tomorrow, and then Mars goes into Leo. Now Leo is fire, Mars rules fire and weaponry and fighting. And so it's going to be a lot more heated there in the 11th house of friends, group work, goals and gains, as well as your future and where it is that you see yourself going. Pluto and Mars, as of tomorrow, will be in what we call an out of bound opposition. So, Pluto still being in the 29th degree in the fourth house, the direct opposition would be like today in the 10th house, but as of tomorrow, that Mars energy is going to be in the 11th house, but they're still going to be within the degrees of each other and not close enough degrees where it's still going to be in that opposition, but not in those exact houses, which could make the energy feel like you're in the middle, like you're stuck in the middle of like um what are those? Like not a ping pong game, but like um a pinball machine, like where the energy is just sort of like it's all over the place. It's one thing 1 minute and then it's another thing another minute. And the thing is, this could absolutely be very connected to your anxiety and your worry and your fears about how are things going to be, how is this going to land, what's going to be on the other side of this, right? I just want to let you know that especially over the course of the next 2 weeks, it could be very that way, where there's a lot of fear that's going to be rising up to the surface based on a lot of changes that have recently reared their head, right? Changes, whether it be in relationship, whether it having to do with family situation, property and real estate. These are all things because Pluto is in that fourth house at the 29th degree. The reason I'm also mentioning children is because Mars is moving into Leo tomorrow, and Leo does rule children. Pluto is going to be moving into the fifth house in about 12 days in the sign of Aquarius, but that is where Leo naturally lives. Children, monetizable talents, your own business, your joy, your ability to take a chance on things. There's going to be a lot of change going on in that arena. And in the sign of Aquarius, you're thinking about your future, the idea of having children, should you or should you not, children that you have right now, a business that you have right now. There's going to be a lot of, should I keep going with something or should I not? Is it time to stop trying to push something forward and change direction? The changing direction is going to have to happen anyway, but it's just a matter of like needing to really embrace it now at this point, because this between now and the beginning of May is really a turning point energy, and a lot of decisions do need to be made. And a lot of these decisions you've been kicking around in your head for the past probably couple of years. And now it's where ever since Pluto started moving into Aquarius, which has been 2 years ago, it got very heavy. It might have been lingering before that, but where it started to get a lot more profound. And so now it's, really looking at that fifth house, falling in love, love affairs, um, children, again, entrepreneurial efforts, being willing to take a chance on something, these larger things. Fifth house is also vacations and winning money through gambling. And, when Pluto's in there, I really I wouldn't gamble too much, right? But opposing that Mars energy, coming up throughout the rest of, this opposition, it really is going to be like, thinking about children and your future, your business and monetizable talents, right? Monetizable talents and the money that you're making from your business. Are you going to have enough for your future? Really looking at that, is it worth it kind of energy, if that makes sense. It's going to be a lot of that on the one hand, having to do with this Pluto and Mars opposition. Now, Mars also rules your seventh house of marriage, bosses, and your energetic output at work. And Mars, again, is that fighter, it's that warrior energy. The fighter, warrior energy, lighting up your seventh house, which is where Hygeia retrograde happens to be Chiron retrograde has to be, and the North Node retrograde in Aries happens to be. So, seventh house is other people, Libra. So, you might be dealing with a significant other or a boss or somebody in your life who's significant who may be dealing with some sort of illness. Now, it can be particularly like an Aryan type of illness, which, Aries does rule like the physical body and the outside, seventh house, very connected to the skin, but Aries also rules the head. So anything having to do with, like, let's just say from the collarbone up, right? So ears, nose, throat, eyes, brain, anything having to do with the mind, anything having to do with our features here. There could be some challenge there, but it could also be very internal where, there's a lot of anxiety, coming from the mental realm, right? Where there's some sort of challenge going on there. So you might be dealing with a significant other who's got some sort of, they're just struggling with their mental health right now, or they're struggling with some sort of situation within that arena. Again, because Hygeia retrograde does mean like an internal health situation. Hygeia is the Esther word that actually looks like the medical symbol, and it's in the last decan retrograde of that Aries energy in the seventh house of others. So there can be that going on. Now, that happens to be opposing um, Estrella, and Estrella is, when do we need to let go? When do we need to let go of something? So some of you may be in a situation within a job or a relationship where you're with somebody and you know that something's off with them, like maybe they're struggling with their mental health or something's off with their health, something. And maybe in your mind, they're really not trying to help themselves enough. And you're like, am I going to continue staying in this? Why am I going to continue staying in this? They have some sort of challenging situation going on. I don't want to be mean and leave. But I can't deal with it the way that it is anymore. And it could be a lot of that. Okay. And that's going to be for some of you. Okay. We also have to talk about your second house of money, the money that you have from the work that you do, your possessions, what it is that you own, your sense of self, your self-esteem, and your belief system, all second house energy. Your second house, because that's where Scorpio is placed in your chart, is also ruled by Pluto, modern ruler Pluto. Ancient ruler would be Mars. Either one, it doesn't matter because they're opposing each other. So that second house can be very lit up right now as well. Now, that axis, second house, eighth house axis, having to do with the money that you have versus what they have. So there might be some sort of like discrepancy about who pays for what, who's being responsible, who's spending too much, who's not spending enough, and this kind of back and forth. And because you're going to be in this space of thinking, right, should I stay in this circumstance? That circumstance could easily be connected to money, and that could be the linchpin on like why you can't leave something, at least right now, or like maybe you're just not as willing to leave something right for the moment. So then what are you going to do? Because this is really about confronting these things that any sort of situation where you feel like your agency is being challenged, where you feel like you're not able to do or be or have the life that it is that you want. There's no skirting the issue anymore. It's not. And can I just tell you something that I keep feeling? And this is going to sound really weird, but it's been bothering me since I started talking to you guys. I don't know why. I'm looking at your chart and it feels like a taco. I know that sounds so weird, right? A taco is like folded, and you guys are always in opposition, but it just feels like the center of your chart, the balance that's necessary right now until the middle of May is like being pulled down almost so that the sides of your chart are coming in. I know that sounds really crazy, but I have to tell you what I'm seeing. There has got to be some sort of new turnaround, beginning, some sort of situation in either a very important relationship or a job. There's got to be a fresh path, new beginning. It can't continue on the road that it is. Okay. We've been talking about it. Now it's here. Now it's here. It's November. We've been talking about this, right? Change is going to come in a lot of different ways. Keep in mind, not everybody, but pretty much everybody is going to be changing houses this year. And as they change houses, it's going to be impacting Pluto in a certain way to really move us into this space of growth and transformation that we've been talking about for 2 years. Well, this one though is really going to get things going, right? A little later in the year, we're going to have the nodes change, Saturn change, Uranus change, Neptune change, everybody's changing, right? But right now we're dealing with this Mars opposition and this idea of what is holding on to us and what do we have to start prying our fingers away from, right? And you're really looking at your long-term goals. You're looking at where it is that you're going. You're thinking about your future. Some of you are really looking at the idea of conceiving and having children. Am I going to conceive or am I not? What should I have more children? Should I not? Should I open that business or should I not? Should I allow myself to find someone new to be in relationship with or not? But it is this absolute crossroads there. You're going to be looking at your money. You're also going to be looking, though, at how you feel about yourself in a way that you haven't looked at yourself like this in a very long time. Really looking at your sense of self and your self-value, you know? Because I feel like for a lot of you, you've been very busy dealing with so many other things outside of yourself. And this year is really going to make you go within, and really let go of what's not serving you, especially the letting go of what's not serving you is going to happen by the first week of January of 2025, because that's when the South Node is going to be leaving your sign and going into Virgo in your 12th house. So there's going to be a lot of shifting there and a lot of decisions. The decisions need to be happening now. So it's not only that Pluto is in Capricorn in the fourth house at 29 degrees and Mars is at 29 degrees in Cancer. It's that Mars tomorrow is going to be going into Leo in the 11th house, and in less than 2 weeks, Pluto is going to be going into Aquarius, so that fifth house, 11th house opposition. So we're dealing with the fourth house, 10th house, fifth house, 11th house opposition. And that's really like cutting your chart in half, it really is looking at your future, where you are now, your invasive operations, your joy, your happiness, and where it is that you see your life going. So those are all big deals. Now, in addition to that, we have that Mars energy is also going to be, it's going to be squaring Australia in the first house. First house of what do you need to let go of on your path? You've been holding on to something for too long. It's on your path. Now it's in the sign of Libra. So maybe you've been hanging in there a little too long in a relationship that's just not good for you. I'm not a big proponent of like cutting and running. I'm not doing that, saying that. But you either have to upgrade it and change it or release it in this energy. Really, that's kind of the choices, right, that are given. And maybe it's not your relationship. Maybe it has to do with your job, and that Libra energy represents your boss or your bosses. But it is definitely connected to the path that you're walking on, and you've been holding on for too long to something that it's time that you need to let go of. You need to let go of it. So some of you with that Pluto going into the fifth house, maybe you're going to be making some big changes in the area of your business, right? Because Libra energy is also very connected to energetic output. So not only do you have that Mars energy squaring Australia in that first house energy of Libra, but your seventh house, which has Aries on it, is ruled by Mars. And Mars is going to be Mars is going to be lighting up your Aries sector and this fighter energy. So you might be fighting to do something different, having to do with the energetic output of a business. So you may be deciding that maybe you want to either close a business that you have, or you want to expand a business that you have, or you need to make some sort of changes within a business that you have. Some of you may be feeling the same way, having to do with relationship. Maybe it's both. Could be a little bit of both. Now, I do want to mention that you do have Neptune is in the last decan in the sixth house, which is our health. Neptune retrograde, internally manifested, does represent disease and disease, and it's in the house of Saturn as well. So some of you may be dealing in that sign of Pisces, might have been dealing with some sort of challenges in your health that like maybe were a little like confusing or a little weird, like kind of out of nowhere kind of situations just came up. Doesn't mean that it has to be like a serious thing, but it's more of like a hello, you have to pay attention to your health, right? I have a lot of Libra rising clients, and a lot of them have been coming up with like strange kinds of things, random, and this is not to be scary, but just like random people in healthy people in their 20s and 30s, by the way, blood clots, situations with their bowels, because the sixth house especially rules the bowels, anything to do with the GI tract, lots of those issues, reflux kinds of things that could end up segueing into bigger things, but if caught early are not a big deal. So if you're feeling not yourself, make sure you're getting checked out. Um, because there could be just like little things coming up, could be anything like that. With Pluto and Capricorn in the fourth house, it could be anything, even with your teeth or your joints or anything like that. Some of you may have been having some sort of experience with that over the past several months. Again, this is like nothing to like freak out about, but it's more stuff to pay attention to. Because you want to remember, just from a practical perspective, Pluto brings things up from the depths that have been hiding. Right. So that in combination with the fact that Neptune is in Pisces still, and now it's in the last decan, so it's very strong. And because Neptune rules Pisces and they together rule disease and disease, particularly the type that we can't see, and having those energies in your sixth house of health, things could just be popping up. But again, you get in front of it soon, earlier rather than later, and it ends up being just fine. Okay, so you want to just make sure that you're taking heed on those things. And the last thing I want to mention is that Pluto is going to be trining a Uranus, which is nice. It's yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, yep, yeah. Within 4 degrees within a 4 degree trine, and that Uranus energy is going to be in the eighth house. So you could be getting some sort of like sudden help because it's in the sign of Taurus. You could be sudden help financially from somebody, or you might be helping somebody financially. There could be this situation where there's some sort of new investment, like something that you wouldn't have thought coming 6 months ago, where it's like suddenly maybe you're buying a house, you're selling a house, you get some sort of inheritance, you suddenly decide you want to get a divorce, you want to suddenly there's some sort of sudden change of events when it comes to the life of a significant other, right? Some sort of shocking change of events, right? That you didn't see coming. So you have a lot of energy that's surrounding you, like this sudden shift, right? A good manifestation would be somebody giving you money. That would be really good. It could be a little more challenging if a significant other is having some sort of challenge with their health, right? Because it isn't Taurus. Taurus does rule our internal body. But because it's in a trine with Pluto, I feel like the change and the experience is not going to be a horrible thing for you. So I don't want you to worry too much about that. But it does seem like something will definitely need to be tended to. And I just feel like somebody else is like needing you, right? It's going through some sort of like painful period, but meanwhile, you have your own painful stuff going on. So there's going to have to be a balancing out, right, of both sides of the situation. So there's going to have to be the standing in the middle, and it's going to make you feel a little heavy initially, hence the taco thing. And by the way, my hand is okay. I had my first surgery. I have my second one to fix the bones on Tuesday, so we'll be okay. Thank you so much for all your nice comments. But that I do believe is what I have for you guys. Oh, I do want to mention as well, I do see Juno is at 0 degrees in Scorpio in your second house. Juno represents our marriage partners and as well as things that we're deeply committed to in the sign of Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto. So Pluto is again lighting up that second house, as I mentioned before. So there could be some sort of change that's going on having to do with the finances of a significant other. It doesn't have to be long term. It could just be for now, but I do see you getting some sort of help. It does seem like there's some sort of help is coming in. Either you're helping someone or they're helping you. Could be with money or it could just be with caretaking as well. I do want to say that. But that is what I see for you guys. I hope this was helpful in some way. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this again because this Mars is going to be going retrograde. It's going to dip back into Cancer. And it's going to go back into Leo. It's going to be doing this little bit of a dance from now until really, in essence, the beginning of May. All right. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye. Scorpio, I hope you guys are doing amazing today. Let's talk about this transit, okay? It's opposition, Pluto Mars. So we have a few things to unpack having to do with it. So right now, Pluto is at 29 degrees in Capricorn in your third house. And remember, the 29th degree, very critical degree, and it typically manifests as the shadow manifestation of whatever sign that it's in. So when it's in Capricorn, Capricorn can be very, when it's tired, it can be a little stubborn, very I know what I want to do, get out of my way kind of thing. I don't need any help. Nobody needs to help me. Nobody's going to do it right anyway. No, that kind of thing. So being very sort of in your own sense of this is the way that it needs to be, right? It's the oldest earth energy. It's very grounded. It's very, this is the way I want it, right? So it's that kind of energy. So it could be a little difficult in that it could take away agency from people who are around you in your life, who maybe want to help you, who maybe want to give you some helpful advice, unsolicited or not, right? Who likes that. But it's like, feeling like this is the way, something needs to be. Now it's opposing Mars in Cancer at that 29th degree. Also, 29th degree, critical degree, the underbelly of Cancer would be absolute fear and vulnerability to the point of lashing out. There could even be so much vulnerability, and there's no malice in it. There's no malice in it. So if you're feeling really anxious, if you're feeling really nervous about your emotional stability right now, there's no malice involved in it. You do want to be careful though, because as sweet and as kind as Cancerian energy can be, they can be manipulative when they're pushed to a point of needing to make sure that they're going to be okay. Do you know what I mean? And so you have that energy in the ninth house of your belief system. Um, Ninth house is big. It rules higher mindedness, religion, organized and otherwise, politics, law, legalities, local governance, anything having to do with foreign land, foreign travel, importing and exporting, marketing, advertising, launching anything having to do with negotiation as well. Anything connected to like a second spouse energy, the manifestation of father energy. These are all ninth house things, right? And it's opposing that third house energy of communication and the way that we think. It really is the axis of communication, negotiation, thinking, being able to learn, being able to process, but differently, right? Because Pluto has this great control over us, right, in this space. And he's very sort of strict in this Cancerian energy, thinking like, no, things have to be this way. This is the way that they need to be. But Mars is your warrior who, it's like that tower energy who wants to pull down anything in your life that's not ultimately serving you. And that ninth house also has to do with like traditions, societal norms, things that, we believe in, generally speaking, as a people, right? And so that Mars energy in that 28th degree, it's like you're so afraid to let go of a thought process, you're so afraid of letting go because you don't know what's on the other side. You're not sure what it's all going to mean. If I let go, am I going to be taken advantage of? Am I going to be hurt? Am I going to end up with no money? Am I going and it's a real fear. Now that ninth house could have to do with moving to a foreign land. It could have to do with getting involved in a relationship with a foreign individual, who's just from a different culture. It could have to do with going back to school. It could have to do with launching, marketing, advertising something that you should be getting out there to the world. It's like, but what if I fail? What if it doesn't happen? What if, right? Because that Pluto energy opposing it, man, he could take away our agency better than anybody. He could give us agency, but he could take it away because he's so controlling and he's so anxiety ridden and he's so like, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure? Right. And in the third house, that's a Gemini ruled energy. It's like, am I mature enough for this? It doesn't matter how old you are. Am I smart enough for this? Am I okay enough for this? I'm not sure. But the fear is there. I can't let go of that relationship. I can't let go of that job. I can't let go of that thing. But this opposition is all about confrontation and really confronting this idea of what is holding you, sort of in place in this sort of static energy. What are you feeling like you're prisoner to right now is really what you have to consider, especially with Pluto in the third house, because, third house, yes, I mean, pragmatically, it's connected to our neighborhood, our neighbors, our siblings, our extended family, old friends, the way we think, the way we learn. But the way we think, the way we understand things, yes, but pertaining to anything. So you really have to look at, where do you have yourself very, very stuck right now, Scorpio, and not able to move forward. Now, that Mars energy is in Cancer for today. Tomorrow, literally starting tomorrow, November 4th, it's starting to go in, it is going into Leo. Leo is a very different energy. However, Pluto is still going to be at 29 degrees in Capricorn for another week and a half. Okay. They're still going to be opposed, but it's going to be in what's called an out of bounds opposition. So an out of bounds opposition feels like energy. It feels like you're stuck in a pinball machine. Do. I want this. No, I want this. No, definitely this. So, no, I want this. And it could be like dizzying, even to ourselves. Okay. So we all have to give ourselves some grace over the next 2 weeks, because we're all going to be doing two things at the same time. We're going to be ricocheting from here to there, having to do with our emotions and all of that. At the same time, we're going to be waiting for a shoe to drop. Now, that sounds negative, and I don't want anyone to leave negative comments down below, because I don't want you to look at this as this is about change that's necessary. And I know you're afraid to incite the change, but you know that the change is going to be good for you. You know it, you know it, you know it. That Mars moving into Leo is going to be watching out for you. He's going to be your hero. He's going to be your warrior in the house of falling in love, love affairs, relationships, having to do with your career, public reputation, standing in the world, your long-term goals, your joy, your ego, your happiness, your own business. That's what Mars does in there. But as long as it's good for you, if this is you trying to hold on to, and it's a new business, it's a new relationship, it's a new way of looking at things. Because that's Leo, is that dug in older relationship energy is far more like Libra 7th house energy. That's not what we're talking about here. It's just not what we're talking about. This is really looking through everything through a very, very different lens and making some big decisions for yourself. Now, this doesn't mean you have to go and get divorced, quit your job, whatever, whatever. It's not about that. It's about you on a personal level, you wanting to bring yourself different things for your path. A lot of you are going to become very, very mindful. Really mindful. I'm sure you already are, but extra mindful of the clock on the wall that's ticking and ticking and ticking. And you're going to get a lot more serious. You can expect that, especially over the next 6 months, more so especially for the next 6 months, but even for the next year and a half following that. So really for about the next 2 years, we're looking at this, because Pluto's moving into the 4th house in about a week and a half, property, real estate, home. There's change and transformation going on there. So some of you maybe experienced a big change within your home. Maybe you're redoing your home. You're thinking about redoing your home. You're moving. People, again, moving in, moving out, could be that. Or it could just simply be you're in a base of operations when you think about the future and you're setting up a whole new ball of wax for yourself. A lot of you, I do want to say though, a lot of you are going to be moving. And with that Mars in opposition with the 10th, it's going to be very connected to your long-term plans, your future. A lot of you will be very connected to your career. Some of you, a lot of it is also going to be, by the way, connected to your children. I do want to kind of get this out of the way. Many of you Scorpios, especially those of you who are not in the early decan. So I'm going to say anyone from who's 10 to 29 degrees. You want to watch out for there being words between you and your children. There could certainly be words between you and a significant other as well. Or words between you and somebody who you're in business with. Now, let me be a little more clear here. That 5th house energy, right? Because you have Pisces is there, but Pluto is going to be sextiling Neptune. in that fifth house energy, right? So Pluto's about change and transformation. Neptune is very confusing. It's very dreamy. It's very foggy. Some of you are going to really fall in love with an idea on some sort of business plan, fall in love with the idea of a new relationship, fall in love with an idea having to do with your children, but then it's a matter of translating it to reality. And that's where the confusion can step in. And because Saturn is going to be in the house, you want to make sure that it's not going to, your idea is not going to be circumvented by, or truncated rather, by the fact that Saturn is in there. It can be a little challenging as far as being able to be seen and heard, right? Um, you could easily feel like you're being taken advantage of in a business situation or having to do with your children, or that your children might be saying that to you, that you don't appreciate them, or there could be a situation where there's just not a meeting of the minds, right? Where they feel victimized or you feel victimized, and there ends up being this kind of a challenging energy, particularly after tomorrow, especially over the next 2 weeks. That Mars energy in Leo in the 10th house. That again, Mars is the warrior of argument in the sign of Leo, which rules our children, our love affairs. It rules our our businesses. There could be a lot of very heightened energy, but this is so raw because Mars is exceptionally close to Earth right now. And so what can happen here in the angular house, that 10th house, which has to do with long-term plans, a major blowout can end up burning a bridge when it comes to, how some arguments are like that? Like some arguments you could be like, oh man, listen, I'm sorry, I wasn't myself. I said X, Y, and Z. I really didn't mean it. Maybe I meant it in the moment. I feel like a horrible person, whatever, whatever. You could kind of make amends, right? This is the kind of energy where it's like, oh, but you went there, or they went there, and it's like, oh, there's no coming back from that. It's too difficult, at least not in the short term. So you want to really avoid that because this is that kind of energy, right? That we could certainly be dealing with. Okay. So the Mars is going to be hanging right in that 10th house, a very public house. Yes, it's your career, it's your long-term goals, it's the status of your greatest relationships. And there's going to be a lot of, I don't know, am I being treated fairly? Or has there been transparency? Has there been honesty or not? Is this true for me? Is this what I want to be doing? So again, you guys could be really happy in a relationship, but maybe you're feeling stagnant, just as your own individual self. And maybe you need to get out there and do more. That Mars energy in Leo is excellent for getting into some sort of new hobbies, going out to your neighborhood and meeting people, just going out and doing stuff that makes you happy and not waiting for somebody else to come along and make you happy, but really taking the bull by the horns and you doing it, not waiting on other people, right? I want to be very clear in that because I know a lot of my Scorpios, especially my Scorpio rising, my Scorpio sun, um, uh, people, clients are very happily married, but they're having their challenges having to do with their work or where it is that they live or just feeling a sense of fulfillment right now. So it does depend on what else is going on in your chart, right? Remember, these are general readings. But I do want to also mention that Estrella is situated in a square to Mars. Now, Estrella is a very important asteroid that indicates what we have a really hard time letting go of. And Estrella happens to be in Libra, and it happens to be in the 12th house of the hidden. So some of you might be in some sort of hidden love affair where it's, behind the scenes, it's a secret love affair. It could be that. Some of you may be feeling like, oh, I don't know when I need to like let go of this situation because it's not ultimately going to bring me to where it is that I want to go. And a lot of you are realizing that with Uranus in the seventh, you're staying because you have these deep feelings. A lot of promises might have been made, but the follow through is not there. And the thing is, Uranus is going to be moving out of the seventh house into the eighth house in the month of August. So, it's make or break. There, you're either going to be ending relationships or you're going to be getting married. You're going to be committing in a different and deeper way, but there's not going to be any more in between. The same thing goes, though, also when we're talking about some sort of responsibility having to do with work, because the 12th house, being the house of the hidden, is also kind of being behind the scenes and doing a lot of planning, doing a lot of creating behind the scenes. So you might be somebody who's been doing a lot of creative work, a lot of behind the scenes, doing a lot of grunt work, and with it squaring that this energy between in your 10th house at that point, having to do with career, public reputation, your ability to move forward in life. There is this tension between what it is that you are designing and creating in private, and how is it actually serving you right now. But it's like you have a hard time letting go of that situation. You could have a hard time letting go of that job, a hard time letting go of that idea, a hard time letting go of that desire, right, of a career that it is that you would ultimately like, or even if it's not a career, a way of living, a way of being. Maybe you don't want a career at all. Maybe you just kind of want to be taken care of, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And so you're like very stuck in that, space. But there's going to have to be this coming to terms with that, right? When the square happens with Mars, which quite frankly, we're going into it very heavy starting tomorrow, okay? Very connected to relationship, very connected to job, but also some of you could be very connected on another level to your energetic output at work, right? Having to do, like, maybe it's not a significant other or a boss, but it's the way that you do your work. So, for example, maybe you are, I don't know, whatever, you service people in a certain way, and you're just not going to be, you don't want to service them in that way anymore. It's not that you don't want to, it's just that it's not working for you anymore. Maybe it's not bringing you enough money, not enough security, whatever it is. You need to change the way in which you're doing something that you've been kind of putting off, right? And so this opposition is really making you look at it very, very clearly, right? Very clearly. Now, that Uranus energy is going to be trining Pluto. So that Pluto energy in the third house is going to be there for another like week and a half. Then it's moving into the fourth house, still going to be in a trine, right? Because of the degrees that Uranus is in. Um, Really creating some big changes. I mean, you are really very slated for some big changes coming up. I want to expand that time frame out though with this Uranian energy to be up until August of 2025. Big changes in the area of relationship and or job, right? Having to do with a boss. Boss is some sort of contract, sort of important relationship, or even in how it is that you output yourself at work, right? You know what I mean? The way you service your people at work. So it's going to be a lot of big changes. It's a trine, which is very supportive to this transformative Pluto energy. So nothing to be mad at there. There isn't. You have been giving something a lot of energy. You know what? Those of you who know the tarot cards, I'm kind of getting like an Eight of Cups energy. That Eight of Cups energy is very like, I put so much energy into this. I gave it such a good go. It's not working. I'm never going to reach that place in this situation that I really desire. And I need to understand it's time to go. And sometimes it's like starting to pull away in the dark of night, if you know what I mean, right? Where you're not even talking about it. You're just sort of starting to just slowly pull away from something, okay? But this really is about, ultimately leveling yourself up, leveling you up, right? Which will be ultimately a nice energy. Look, will the energy be a little frenetic right now? 100%. It's a transit. You have to say that. Don't get into this thing where you're giving the astrology so much power that it's ruling you, okay? That's not why we do this, guys. We do this so that we know it's coming, we can prepare ourselves, and we could say, wow, the energy around everybody that I'm speaking to right now, they are so wound up, man, so stressed. I'm going to just kind of keep my distance from people, especially people who I care about. I'm just going to let the energy ride a little bit, let it chill out a little bit, and then re-engage. You know what I mean? And just focus on yourself and do some nice things for yourself just for this little time period. Just especially for the next few weeks. Will this opposition be coming and going between now and the beginning of May? Yes, it will be. But things are going to start to make sense. But not this month. Things are going to be all over the place. It's going to be very confusing. It just is. It's the way it is. Right? I'm so glad I'm getting my surgery on Tuesday. And I told the doctor when he did my last surgery last week, he gave me this a nerve block so that my whole arm went numb. So he was able to do like tendon, whatever. And that felt really weird. I don't know if any of you ever got a nerve block, but like I couldn't feel my arm, felt paralyzed. I was like flopping it everywhere and I couldn't even feel it, which isn't good because I have a bunch of broken bones. So I called him and I was like, it's election day. I'm going to be in a lot of pain. I want the full, all of the, I want to be put out. I want the full anesthesia. I don't want any blocks. And I said, let's do it late in the day. I just want to be sleeping till the next day. I don't want to deal with anybody on election day, you know. It's going to be a wacky week. So that's my little attempt to sort of, bring myself a little bit of peace, give me anesthesia. But anyway, my friends, I hope this was helpful in some way. And again, remember, this all rides on what is going on in your personal chart. So please understand the general messages. And only take what applies and throw out the rest. Okay, my friends, you guys take care and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Sagittarius. I hope you guys are doing great today. So let's talk about the Pluto and Mars opposition. So let's start talking about today. Today is in the exact opposition, Pluto 29 degrees in Capricorn in your second house, and Pluto in Cancer 29 degrees in your eighth house. So this opposition is a bit of a heavy one for sure. It has a lot, it's very connected to money, a lot connected to, for some of you, money, for some of you, it's health. So let's talk about the money first. So Pluto in the second house, in that last degree of the second house, the anaretic degree, it's very controlling. The underbelly of Capricorn, which is always what we need to look at when there is a 29th degree in a sign. We look at the underbelly of that sign. It could be very controlling. It could be very, no, this is the way that it needs to be. I don't want to give up on this. I don't want to let it go. Even if there are a lot of signals and signs saying that this is probably not the best thing. In that second house, again, it has to do with the money that you make from the work that you do, what's in your bank account. It has to do with your possessions, anything that you attach the idea of worth to, right? Let's just keep it having to do with that for now. Whereas that Mars, a 29th degree in Cancer, it's the underbelly of the energy of Cancer, which is fear, which is vulnerability, disappointment, right? Because it's a moon ruled energy. Even if you have a lot more support than it is that you realize initially, you could feel very vulnerable right now, especially when it comes to money coming from other people, anything having to do with debt, taxes, investments, again, anything having to do with other people's money, right? And so this opposition, Mars wants us to move. Mars gives us energy. Mars wants it to happen. So you're really wanting somebody to give you money, wanting somebody to invest, wanting an inheritance situation to settle up, an insurance situation to level out, some sort of legal situation to finalize. That Pluto energy is so controlling, right? And it's just sort of keeping you in this space. And it could, Pluto is in that late degree, can actually make us feel like our agency is being taken away from us, where we feel like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Like, I don't feel like I actually have full control over what's happening. And this is just Pluto changing right now. So that's the kind of energy that can manifest as far as money goes, on the one hand. On the other hand, the second house also does rule our internal body, okay? Our organs. It rules our mouth, what we put in our mouth. It rules our food, the way we eat. So a lot of you may be going through a period where you're going to start changing the way that you eat. You're going to need to start changing the way that you actually tend to your body, particularly with Uranus in the last decan at 25 degrees in the sign of Taurus in the sixth house. The Taurus energy, again, rules the second house. So we're talking about health things right now. Now, there could be some sort of, one, two, let me just see, one, two, three, four, yeah. We do have a nice trine happening between Pluto and Uranus, I do have to say, and I like it between the second house and the sixth house. This is going to be rolling out really between now and August of 2025. Now, Uranus is about, revolutionary change, shocking surprises, very connected to the future, very connected to advances in science. And in the sixth house of health, this could indicate that if you have some sort of challenge going on with your health, that there could be some sort of new medication that they come out with, some sort of, something that ends up manifesting. out in the medical field that's going to help you. But I can also tell you that I see there being some sort of therapies through food that could be very, very beneficial to you right now as well. So those of you who might be struggling with some sort of health issue, please be mindful of that. This is an optimistic energy. So I definitely want to deliver that piece of good news. Okay. The challenge here can also be that Mars energy in the eighth house represents somebody who, um, because it's in Cancer, it could be a housing situation, property, real estate, something going on with a member of your family. It could be a significant other, it could be somebody that one of your siblings as well, quite frankly. But there could be some sort of opposition there, right? That you've been kind of going through. But as of tomorrow, now Mars is going to be going into Leo, into your ninth house tomorrow. We're going to talk about this because I feel like this is going to be a pretty important thing, particularly over the next 2 weeks. But just keep in mind that Mars is going to be doing this little dipping back and forth, this little dance between Leo, Cancer, all the way until the beginning of May, around the beginning of May, right? Yeah, beginning of May, end of April, beginning of May, where we're going to be feeling this opposition, right? But for now, what's really important now over the next couple of weeks is as of tomorrow, Mars, yes, goes into Leo, and in about a week and a half, Pluto is going to transition next door from the second house into the third house of communication, of siblings, extended family, your neighbors, your neighborhood. This is the axis of negotiation, Sagittarius. Now, when that Mars energy goes into that ninth house, that has to do with foreign land, foreign travel, foreign entities, publishing, marketing, advertising, getting something out there to the world. Anything having to do with higher mindedness, higher education, law, legalities, local governance, father energy, the manifestation of father energy, the manifestation of second spouse energy as well. But Mars is going in there, and Mars is a warrior. He's a fighter. He rules weapons. He rules fire, but he is the energy underneath our wings that we need to actually get stuff done. So there's going to be a lot of resolve, and Mars is not afraid of confrontation. He is not at all, right? So this energy of confronting, this could be something pertaining to a creative project, particularly something that you've written because it's a third house, ninth house axis, or something that would be contained, anything having to do with communication or media, anything having to do with a situation going on within your neighborhood or your neighbors, anything going on with a sibling or extended family member. These are going to be oppositional energies that are going to be going on. So there's change. And what is the change? Pluto, change in Aquarius, again, has to do with the masses. It has to do with getting something out there to the world. It has to do with advances in science and technology and medicine. It has to do with the way we learn things. What I love about this transit for you, Sagittarius, I have to say, is you guys are going to be thinking differently. There's going to be such a higher degree, and you're a very honest energy, but a lot of times you're overly optimistic. A lot of times you are. I mean, I'm just talking about the general archetype where you'll say things and you'll mean them 100% in the moment, but then maybe you put the cart before the horse, or you're being overly optimistic about something. But there's going to be this sense of sort of reality that's going to be coloring the way that you think and the way that you process things. So not that you're not going to continue to be optimistic, not that you're not going to continue to be a lot of fun and funny and have that beautiful wanderlust energy in you. But there's going to be, with that Pluto energy in there, which is so controlling, there's going to be more of a pulling in of, is this possible or is this not possible? So there's going to be a groundedness about it that I think is actually going to be ultimately very, very healthy for you. But during this opposition, there can be some sort of challenging energies in that ninth house. Again, foreign land, foreign travel, law, legalities, local governance, importing and exporting, getting some sort of project out to the world. If you're dealing with some sort of business situation, there can be some sort of challenging energies when it comes to communication. If you're dealing with anyone in a legal circumstance, anything having to do with legal. But when we're talking about this kind of opposition, it's like, are we being fair? Is everyone being fair? Because your fifth house is also being activated right now. And the fifth house has to do with creative projects. It has to do with your children. It has to do with falling in love, love affairs, romance, your happiness, your joy, any sort of monetizable talents. Well, Mars rules your fifth house. So you're going to be feeling like a lot of fight in your energy for these things, fighting for your children, fighting for that project, fighting for your joy, your happiness. Whereas Pluto rules the 12th house of self-sabotaging behavior, but also of feeling victimized, right? And things going on behind the scenes that you don't feel privy to. And that could be a very frustrating situation where you're trying to manifest something and everything was supposed to go a certain way. And then suddenly things go sideways. And then you feel like you're not getting all the information, or you just don't have enough information quick enough in order for you to feel like you know what's really going on over the course of the next like 6 months to a year. And you want to know, right? So that's going to be a point of frustration that you just have to expect and just be patient with it, because everything is going to ultimately reveal itself over time. But I do want to say, guys, that you are being very, very, you're being very blessed right now, right? Because you have that Jupiter energy is just beaming on you from across your energy, right? And because Gemini's in Jupiter. So even though Jupiter is retrograde right now, you're not feeling very lucky. That's okay. It's going to change. There will be solutions. There will be things coming in. If you feel like you're kind of stuck between like a rock and a hard place right now, where you feel optimistically things are going to work out, things are going to go in a much better direction, they're not there right now. And so you're really having a hard time figuring out, I feel like something's going to work out, but I really can't see what that's going to look like, actually. How is it going to roll out, actually, right? And that's okay. So this is about just kind of stay in the course, stay in the course. Now, there was something else I wanted to mention here. Yes, Mars is going to be squaring Australia. Now, Australia is an asteroid. It's in Libra right now in your 11th house in the last 10 degrees. It's at 27 degrees. Is very connected to this idea of what we need to let go of and what we, what we need to let go of, but we can't bring ourselves to let go of it, right? And that 11th house has to do with our goals and our gains and things that we really wish for ourselves, for our retirement or our future, right? It has to do with the masses. It has to do with dealing with other people. And in the sign of Libra, maybe you feel like, oh, I really wanted A, B, and C for my marriage or my job or whatever, but it's not going through the way that I really wanted it to. But understand that it's going to come through a different way. So you have to keep your energy open. What you thought was going to happen is not going to happen. Something else is going to happen, but you're going to be taken care of because you're being blessed here. All right. So I don't want you to worry about it, but just understand that this next section of time, and I'm sure a lot of you have been feeling it. A lot of you have been feeling it, right? Just not yourself, right? Mentioned that my video last week about the energy for November, where it's like you feel like yourself, but it's like all of these things are coming in that are kind of weighing you down. And not in a way where it's like, wah, wah, what a bummer, what a down. It's like, no, like this is life. Like I have to deal with these things now. And it's changing the way that I thought things were going to go. And that's okay, because things are going to be changing in another way that you don't see right now. And that's what you need to focus on, is that having the faith that things are going to be just fine. Just rise above the crazy ass energy that's going to be coming up, especially the next 2 weeks, because this is the thing, starting tomorrow when Mars goes into that ninth house, that Pluto is still going to be at 29 degrees in your second house. So it's going to be in an out of bounds opposition, which is going to make you feel like you're stuck in a pinball machine, right? Right, all over the place. At the same time, you're going to be waiting for the shoe to drop, or you're going to be waiting for the phone call to, the phone to ring to get that piece of news, whatever it is, right? So very interesting energy for you guys right now. So just take a deep breath and just know that this is temporary transit, especially over the next couple of weeks. The energies are going to be high, but everything's ultimately, it's going to be okay. Okay. It is going to be okay. All right. Thanks for hanging with me, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Capricorn. So let's talk about this opposition, right, between your first house and your seventh house, starting today, November 3rd. Pluto at 29 degrees. Remember that 29 degrees, the critical degree, which means the manifestation, whatever sign it's in, we're going to get the underbelly of that sign. The underbelly of Capricorn could be very very strict, right? Because it's Saturn ruled energy. Very like, no, this is the way that it needs to be. It's not that you're not willing to be flexible. It's just that there's a greater clarity about, what it is that you ultimately need in order to feel safe and secure moving into the future. And you're just not really going to have the patience to deal with anything that might potentially compromise that. You're just not going to want to deal with that. Pluto's very controlling and he's very connected to anxiety as well. And since he's positioned in that space of your sign, there can be a lot of, really looking at your path that you're walking on. Where are you going in life? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself going? And this is really a time of confrontation, particularly with yourself. Really, because it's sort of going to be twofold with you, which is going to be interesting, even during this opposition with that Mars energy in the seventh house at 29 degrees in the sign of Cancer. That has to do with other people. That could be a significant other. That could be somebody very close to you. That could be a boss. That could be even the way in which you're working, right? Really looking at like what energy are you putting out to the world. The confrontation is really going to ultimately be to yourself, with yourself, really looking in the mirror and saying, how did I get here? What am I doing? Where am I going? And then, though, what's really cool is that during this opposition, you're going to have an answer. You have to say, you know what? I've been doing this, this, and this. And I like this and I like that, but I don't like this anymore. This thing is not feeling right to me anymore. I need to make a change. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to get rid of anything. It doesn't mean seventh house. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of a significant other. It doesn't mean that you have to quit your job. It doesn't mean that you have to end that friendship, but it means that something needs to change. But the change has to come from you. It's got to come from you. Now, the Mars energy, opposing you, that's where the gumption and the energy and the fire and the fight is coming from, right? Because that's what Mars is. But Mars really wants to push things to be better on the other side. Mars doesn't allow things to stay in our life that are they're not ultimately meant for us, right? At the end of the day. And at the 29th degree, that shadow manifestation of Cancer can come up, which is very based in fear, in vulnerability, and insecurity. So you could be dealing with a very vulnerable or insecure boss, a very vulnerable or insecure partner right now, very vulnerable or insecure friend. And the thing is, their vulnerability and their insecurity is reflecting back to you. So there could be some sort of projection where you're on the receiving end of their fears. You're on the receiving end of their vulnerability, if that makes sense. So here you are receiving it, right? Catching it and saying, yeah, I really don't like this, right? Because Pluto, where you're catching it, is again very stubborn, doesn't like to be controlled, doesn't like, and doesn't really like to be, certainly doesn't like to be micromanaged. He likes to be in control of things. So there's going to be whatever's been making you feel like there's been any sort of challenge to your sense of agency, to your sense of being, I'm not even going to say independent, but whatever you feel like has been holding you back, reflective of the seventh house, reflective of a relationship, a marriage, a job, anything going on with a boss or bosses, or even the way in which you've been working, right? So this might not have anything to do with an actual individual. This opposition could certainly be to the way in which you've been working, the way in which you've been exercising your energetic output in your area of employment, and you're sitting back and saying, I can't do this anymore. This is too much, or it's not enough, or I'm just not feeling it anymore. It's going to depend on what's going on in your own chart. But you're definitely feeling this call to go in a different direction. You're feeling a call to make some change. And I would venture to say that you're feeling that on several levels. You might be feeling it with work, but you might also be feeling it in relationship, because a lot of you, because the thing is, you also have Cronus and Hades in that seventh house, both retrograde, both in the sign of Cancer. And so you might feel like there's some sort of, you're realizing that you've been sacrificing something when it comes to relationships or when it comes to work and the way that you work. When I say sacrifice, it's like you realize that you got yourself into a position of isolation. You realize that you got yourself into a position of not feeling heard and seen in the way that you really want to. and you're realizing it way too loudly right now. And this is not something that you want to um, keep perpetuating in your energy. Quite frankly, you just don't want to do that. And this is going to be very, very obvious to you. It's probably been obvious to you, but it's probably been much louder the past couple of weeks. Today it's exact. Tomorrow, that Mars energy goes into Leo in your eighth house, and there starts the out of bound opposition. So, what that means is Capricorn is still going to be in your first house at 29 degrees, except Mars is going into from your seventh house into your eighth house, and it's right at that beginning, but they're still going to be within the degree of opposition. So it's called an out of bounds opposition, which can make us feel like we're stuck in a pinball machine, right? Is what I've been telling all the signs. It's that kind of energy. It's like you say, oh, I want to do this. No, 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 I want to do that. No, 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 I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do that. Right? Or I feel really strong about this now. And then you wake up the next day and it's like, oh, wait, I don't feel so strong about that. Maybe I want to do this thing. Right. And it can be this very back and forth thing. Now, where it could get tricky is that Mars is going into the house of change and transformation, which is going to be very lit up right now because that's where Pluto naturally lives. So you're going to be feeling that. Mars in Cancer is not too powerful, but Mars in Leo, we have fire with fire. So we have a boatload of motivation and a lot of very strong desire for change. It's going to be a lot of very strong desire for change. Of course, it also depends on what else you have going on in your eighth house in your own birth chart. And you really want to look at those cuspy degrees that are like very close to the end, especially within that first, like the first steek and the first 10 degrees, really feeling that. Because that Mars energy is really going to give you a lot of gumption and a lot of fire in there. Now, Pluto at that 29 degree, is really getting, this is a very powerful transit for Capricorn risings in particular, because Pluto is leaving your sign, right? And so transiting in from that first into that second house. So you're going to be looking at your money. You're going to be looking at debt, taxes, money coming from other people, investments, insurance payouts, inheritances. These are things that could be coming in. These are things that you could be dealing with. It does depend on what else is in your chart, but these are the themes that we're going to be dealing with. Now, Pluto's going to be going into that Aquarius energy in about a week and a half, and at that point as well, Mars will also be in Leo, so they will still be in that opposition, except now the opposition is going to be on the money axis. So rather than between the first house, the path that you're on in that house of you and who you are, and seventh house of other people and relationship, now it's going to be your money, what matters to you. How strong a foundation do you feel like you have? Your sense of self and self-esteem. Pluto's going to be in there. Now, Pluto in the second house, again, it could bring changes of realities in that space. So you could go into this, and you have to understand this with Pluto. And I'm sure you even understand it when it was, if you just look at your own life back from 2008, having Pluto go through your first house. There were really great things that came in, I'm sure, and then some really tricky things that came in, some really challenging things. Tricky things, challenging things, right? I mean, Pluto's obviously not the only transit that we go through. Right? Other things go on, but for sure, that's that's a tricky one. It was the same thing when he goes into the second house. We can have money and then we don't have money. We feel really good about ourselves, and maybe then we don't feel so great about ourselves. We feel like we have a strong foundation, and then maybe we feel less secure. That's Pluto. And the best way to work with Pluto is to just open up and say, if I'm having a good run or something, let me make sure I'm saving a little more money over here. If I'm feeling really good about something, let me not get too big for my britches. Let me keep myself grounded and understand that maybe I'm just having a really good energy pass through right now. And let me just keep even keel, right? Because that's what we want. We want to kind of stay open to the ebb and flow of everything, because things could come in and we're like, wow, this is great. And then if we think that things are going to stay like that, so fabulous, then when they don't, then we're so disappointed. It's like, no, understand, this is an ebb and flow kind of experience, and it's going to be for the next 20 years. So just understand there's going to be good, and there are going to be some challenges that roll in. Just keep your energy open. Be full of appreciation when the positive stuff comes in, come in and then just understand and look for the lessons when things go a little south here and there, right? But set yourself up for rain day kind of circumstances when it comes to finance. I mean, that is one way that you can very practically help yourself. And it doesn't even have to be in a big grand way. It really could just be, a little bit of money here or there. You set it aside each week or automatic pull out of your account, month to month, whatever it is, just to create a little safety net for yourself. That'll make all the difference. It really, really will. Pluto does not only impact the finances. In fact, your finances could be completely unimpacted. You don't have to have the finances be an issue at all. It could, manifest in a different way where there are things just going on with your possessions, or there could certainly be circumstances that are going on with your health, right? Because that second house does rule our internal body. It rules our mouth. It rules anything we put in our mouth. It rules our weight. It rules our internal organs. And Pluto will bring things up, right? So we've been talking about this. A lot of you who I've been working with privately are like saying, yes, this and that are popping up, or this and that popped up, and now it's kind of changing faces, right? Where I got diagnosed with this thing, and now it's like changing, and things like this, right? Really, really common with this kind of energy. A lot of Sagittarians went through this when Pluto transited their second house, and now it's Capricorn's turn. Now, again, none of these things have to be huge, crazy, out of the ordinary. Lots of autoimmune stuff popping up. Do not be surprised, because Aquarius rules autoimmune things in the second house of the internal body. It makes sense. This is just something, that could certainly ultimately end up manifesting. But again, this is like, I don't want you to worry about any of this stuff. I just don't want you to put your head in the sand when it comes to any of this. So go to the doctor, get checked, if, get all your numbers checked, everything, eating really good is definitely the way to go. The more natural, the better. Second house is ruled by Taurus, which is very earth. It's very organic. Anything like that, definitely the way to go. Watch the nonsense that we might be putting in our mouths is the way to go. Absolutely. Just kind of moving forward. I really do recommend. I mean, that's good for everyone, but especially when you have a transit like this in that second house energy. That Mars going into Leo, though, a fighter energy in the house of other people's money. So it's other people's money, investments, insurance payout, debt, taxes, all those things that I mentioned before. So, looking at these things and saying, okay, now what? So for example, let's say you get into a situation with Pluto going to your second house and you're like, wow, I'm pretty healthy, I'm okay, but I have this and that. And so I'm really starting to think about my future, and am I going to have enough? And is everything going to be okay? And then you turn and you look at a partner, and are they there for you in the way that you really need them there for you? And if they're not, you need to have a conversation. There's got to be some sort of conversation, because this is the season of confrontation, but it doesn't have to be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be a mess. It doesn't have to be. Over the next 2 weeks, I would recommend trying to sit on your tongue the best you can. I mean, sometimes we have to say things, right? Whatever. But I would say, just because I'm looking at the energies here in your chart, you would probably be best served, because this is the thing. Now, I don't know your particular chart, but as far as just the general transits, the second house and eighth house do not have anything sitting in them. So you don't have any support until tomorrow. Mars is going to be by himself in Leo in the eighth house. And then in a week and a half, Pluto will be by himself in the second house, right? But there's not a lot of extra support going on there right now. Okay. So you can have these big, wild, confrontational discussions about the future, about who's doing what. I put in this, you don't put in enough. You promised me this, you didn't follow through. This is what I need from you. No, that's what I need from you. And you can have those conversations, but they're going to be a waste right now. You're much better off waiting until everybody sort of shifts. I would definitely wait at least until the end of November. When you vibe that a conversation is going in a certain way and you sense, because this is the thing, everybody's going to be in a weird way. Everyone's going to wait for the shoe to drop. Everyone's going to be feeling very controlled, like they don't have enough agency in life. Everyone's going to feel a little overwhelmed. What is going on? No one's going to feel like they have enough control going on. It's very, to me, as an astrologer, this is so interesting. It is so unbelievably interesting. There's so much confusion going on. And a lot of it has to do with the fact also that, we're not really talking about this, but let me just throw this in for good measure. The fact that Neptune and the South and the North Node are actually in an out of bounds conjunction between Pisces and Aries. Talk about confusing. And you guys have that between the third and fourth house. It's like, when I think about my foundation, what does that actually mean for me? There could be a lot of confusion right now around siblings, family situations. There could be a lot of confusion about what it even means to be secure, what it means to, if you want to start a business at home, what am I doing? I don't know what's going on. I'm so confused. That kind of energy. It's just what it is right now. It's not going to be lasting. It's supposed to be. This is a period of change. You have to think back to the revolution and how much change went on that first year. It was bananas. And we are there right now again, guys. This is what we're living in right now. We are living on this very interesting plane that, I mean, from, politics, the government, stuff that's going to be coming out. Everything's going to be changing. It's going to be very, very big on a global level. But how do we navigate it on a private level? Well, we can make choices on what we decide to engage in and what we choose to step back from the time being. Pick your battles really wisely, but sit in the fact that right now, focus on, is my health good? Am I taking care of my mental, physical, and emotional health? Right now, that's got to be priority for you. Is my work okay? Am I bringing in what I need? And a lot of you are just going to be going into this space where you're like, I know I'm changing what I'm doing for work. A lot of you are just going to be in that space, making very ready to make some big changes. Doesn't mean that you're going to be leaving what it is that you're doing, but you want to be doing it differently. There is no doubt in my mind that that is going to be growing in your energy between now, especially the beginning of January of 2025. When that South Node goes into Virgo, you're going to be all about it, man. It's leaving your 10th house, going into your ninth house. Into the sign of Virgo, you are going to be changing up your daily work environment. You're going to be changing up what it is that you're doing. Yeah, is going to be, and you're doing it for your betterment, for your better mental, physical, and emotional health. So I really like this energy for you. You have good stuff coming up. Will this particular transit, what's coming up this month, be difficult? Yes. It'll be confusing. It'll be frustrating. Really take a chill pill. Try to isolate yourself from any of the nonsense that might be going on. Really try to gravitate towards people who make you feel good, right? That's what it's all about. Try to like stick with your tribe the best that you can, and those people who have your back no matter what, who do not stress you out. Now, Saturn is going to be not Saturn, Pluto is going to be trining Uranus. And I really like this energy between your first house and your fifth house. This is very, very good for doing a lot of thinking about starting your own business. This is an excellent energy to really bond with your kids. This is a great energy actually for your relationship, even if your relationship's not perfect. Like the day-to-day practicalities, you're going to be able to sort of rise above things. To manifest things for yourself. This is also an excellent energy for those of you who are single to date, to especially anyone who's sort of like out of the box, a little different than somebody who you would typically go for, maybe somebody who's associated with your friends, a really good energy to make friends. There's a lot of good energy that's mixed in there. There is. You're also going to be letting go of some older friendships or other friendships. There are going to be changes in that arena. There are going to be new coming in, others going out. So there's going to be a lot of new addition, and then it's right. So it's going to be kind of like this sort of like swapping out of energies is such a good way of putting it. Anything else I wanted to say? I wanted to talk about Estrella as well. So Estrella is going to be squaring one, two. Wait. Hmm. So it's going to be squaring Mars and it's going to be sextiling Pluto. So Estrella is the asteroid that represents what we need to let go of, what we've been holding on for too long. And you have it in Libra, which represents relationship as well as a boss or bosses, some sort of work situation, or the way in which you work. And it's in your 10th house of career, public reputation, standing in the world. So it's squaring Mars, which is giving you a lot of energy and a lot of gumption for change. But that very controlling Pluto is in a beautiful sextile, and he's just like gently, but not so gently pushing you into this new arena. So he's giving you a lot of energy and a lot of confidence, even though you're still going to be doubting yourself. He's going to be giving you the energy that's necessary to sort of move forward into something else. Expect that to continue. Expect that to be rolling out, especially between now and the beginning of May. So that is what I have for you, my friends. I hope this was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging out with me. Again, my surgery's Tuesday. Wish me luck getting the bones fixed. And hopefully I'll be better toot sweet or as well as I could possibly be. All right. All right, guys. Take care now. Bye-bye. Hi, Aquarius. I hope you guys are doing great. So let's talk about this opposition between Pluto and Mars. So Pluto today is at 29 degrees in Capricorn in your 12th house, and Mars is at 29 degrees in Cancer. So let's just unpack this for a little bit. What does it mean to have something positioned at 29 degrees? So 29 degrees is a very critical degree, and what it does is it manifests the shadow manifestation in short. All right, I'm going to give like the in short version. In short, the shadow manifestation of that sign. So the shadow manifestation of Capricorn can be very controlling, very stubborn, very kind of like stuck in, not really wanting to release, feeling like if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right. If it's not done this way, it's not going to be okay. And it's that kind of energy. And in Pluto, that's a very controlling kind of energy that we're feeling because Pluto is very controlling and doesn't want to be controlled, right? And in the 12th house of the hidden, the 12th house is subconscious, the 12th house of behind the scenes. There could be this thing that you're holding on to, or it's like, no, 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 it's got to be this way. Things have to be a certain way before I can move forward, or things have to be a certain way before X, Y, and Z happens. And the tricky part here is that because it's in the 12th house, you might not even be fully conscious of where it is that you feel very stuck or where it is that you feel very held back. There's something that's holding you back, something that is taking away your agency and something that needs to be confronted. And it's very focused in that 12th house of self-sabotaging behavior for some of you. So any sort of addiction or any sort of like if you've been vibing that you have some sort of like disease or disease kind of cooking, if you just haven't been feeling right, being worried about that, but maybe not doing something about it, kind of vibing it, but not going to the doctor. Or it's also the place of being unconditionally loving and giving. And some of you might be like, have I been giving too much of myself to that person, to that job, to that situation, and not feeling appreciated and not feeling compensated and whatever that means. It could be by money or it could be appreciation, whatever it is, but it's going to be very awake and you're going to feel very aware of it. Now, while we have that Mars energy in Cancer, our emotional security is very on the forefront. Our home situation, and it could have to do with our own children. It could have to do with people who we grew up with. It could have to do with property, real estate, just things going on within the home because the sign of Cancer does represent those things. It's also in the sixth house, which has to do with daily responsibility. So there can be arguments about daily responsibilities that are supposed to go on around the home, but the sixth house is also your day-to-day work environment. So again, maybe feeling like you're giving too much of yourself to work, or are you self-sabotaging something having to do with work and somebody is calling you out? It could certainly be that as well. Sixth house is also your health, mental, physical, emotional. Have you been worried and about something pertaining to your health, right? And that Pluto energy really wants you to pay attention to that, and Mars gives you the gumption to do that. So if in the past you've been like, whatever, I'm just going to forget about it, this opposition is going to make you confront it because it's all about confrontation. Even if it's not comfortable, the confrontation is going to be there. Now, that's only like today. As of tomorrow, Mars is going to be moving from Cancer into your seventh house Leo energy. But Pluto's still going to be across the chart at 29 degrees in Capricorn in the 12th house. So that's going to be the start of what we call an out of bounds opposition for about the next 2 weeks. And out of bound oppositions can make us feel like we're trapped in a pinball machine, right? Is what I'm telling all the signs, where, you know, this happens and then that happens, and you want to do this and then you want to do that, and you're here and you're there, and you're always waiting for the shoe to drop, or you're waiting for some sort of news to come in. This could create a lot of anxious kind of energy surrounding anything pertaining to the 6th house, 12th house axis, and even into the 7th house. So this could create a lot of anxiety around a work situation. Anything having to do with your daily responsibilities, your responsibilities around the house, both of those things, even though the different areas, it's kind of covering them both. So there's got to be some sort of confrontation and some sort of solidifying of what's happening. Now, in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, about 12 days, that Pluto energy is going to be going into your sign, right? We've been talking about this for a while. That first house energy, you do want to make sure that you check what is in your first house, right? So with anything that's within that first decan, that first 10 degrees, this Pluto energy is going to be speaking to right away for the next several years. They're going to be in a conversation in that first house, right? So it's important that you understand your chart, especially for you guys right now. So it'll be very helpful. But in general, Pluto is going to be going into that Aquarius energy in your first house. And it's right now, it's in the last degree of your entire chart, 29 degrees, 29 degrees in 45 seconds. Like this, it's like, that's like you are changing, right? This is exciting. You just say it's big because that could be like negative. I want you to think in terms of positive, okay? Going into that first house, Aquarius energy has to do with the future. It has to do with technology, has to do with advances in science and medicine. It has to do with the masses, friends, goals and gains, where it is that you're going in your life. So, and doing things very different, doing things very out of the box, right? Pluto is very controlling, though. Wherever he is, he's controlling. He can make us feel rather anxious. And in the sign of Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, Uranus rules electricity, it could give us that kind of nervous energy. This sort of thing that's always just sort of like there, right? When you're worrying about like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Right? This kind of thing. Even if you're getting up on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, going to your job, or you're doing whatever you're doing, you could feel a little like, am I doing the right thing? Am I where I'm supposed to be? It's a very strange kind of vibe, right? Now, starting tomorrow, that Mars energy, like I said, is going to be going into Leo. Now, between now and the beginning of May, Mars is going to be doing this little dance back and forth. It's going to be going into Leo. It's going to be dipping back, retrograding back into Cancer. It's going to be going forward. So we're going to have this like opposition. Will be quite wide at certain times. We're still going to be feeling it between now and the end of April, beginning of May. And so Mars in that Leo energy, Leo rules our children, Leo rules our relationships, especially in the 7th house, falling in love, love affairs, romance, relationships, our boss, our bosses. And so what can happen here, quite frankly, is a lot of feelings can come up having to do with the path that we're on and how we feel about ourselves in relation to our relationships, in relation to how our boss is treating us. So like you, Leo, and I think Cancer energies are really going to be looking at, I might be wrong with the Cancer energy, but anyway, yeah, it's you and those two other signs are really going to be looking at, am I being appreciated? For what I bring to the table, for what I do, for what I put out there. Now, you're going to be thinking about this for some of you. Am I being appreciated by my boss or by these people in my life, even your colleagues? Others of you, because it's in the sign of Leo, do my children respect me? Do my children appreciate me? Are you being controlled by circumstances surrounding your children? Are you being controlled by circumstances surrounding a relationship? Circumstances surrounding a business that you might own, or even circumstances surrounding a job, where there is this energy of feeling limited in that space. And that's something that you're going to be confronting between now and May. This does not have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to mean it's a good thing. It means that it's something that's going to need to change. Where you're at right now can't continue, right? So that it's just a matter of creating that change. Now, we do have that Uranus in the last decan. It's at 25 degrees in Taurus in the fourth house. It's retrograde. So trying to maintain this patience, having to do with some sort of home situation, but it is trining Pluto. So Pluto is really kind of pushing you to create this change in your path. So some of you are going to be like, you know what? It's time that, Uranus, think about my future. So maybe I have to move out of this place. I have to move out to get a job someplace else. I have to make changes in my living arrangements, having to do with people who live with me or where I live, or some sort of changes. There could be some big sort of changes. And the changes, again, do not have to be bad. They're trining Pluto. So while Pluto is very controlling, it is in a very supportive trine. So the transition is going to be supportive. You might even have people in your family surprising you with the amount of support that they give you, right? These decisions that you make, or there could be some sort of surprises, right? With Uranus in that space, trining Pluto, in that fourth house energy. But this could be certainly coming up between now and the beginning of April. Now that Mars energy is going to be squaring Estrella, and Estrella is going to be, let me see, one, two, yeah. So Mars is going to be squaring Estrella, and Estrella is an asteroid that so Estrella is in Libra, and Estrella is very connected to this idea of what we can't seem to bring ourselves to let go of. We know we need to let go of it, but we can't seem to bring ourselves to let go. And so it's in the sign of Libra. Libra's ruled by Venus, so it could be anything having to do with our kids, anything having to do with our money or relationship. And it's in the ninth house. So the ninth house has to do with our beliefs. It has to do with our politics. It has to do with our religion, organized or otherwise. It has to do with our ability to move forward in life, travel, dealing with foreign land, foreign entities. It has to do with publishing, marketing, advertising. So maybe you've been trying to get some sort of project out there. There's something that you've been trying to push forward. Again, it's the house of law, like legalities, local governance, trying to push out a project or something like that. And astray is like you're not letting go of it, right? But there does seem to be some sort of imbalance in that space. So some of you may be having second thoughts about an area of study because ninth house is higher education. Some of you might be having second thoughts about a legal situation. You're in anything that you are involved in having to do with law, legalities, local governance, anything like that. You might be having second thoughts about a job that you're in, right? Like an arena. Like I don't even think it's not even so much like having to do with a boss, but it's like the area that you're in. This is feeling like you're just not getting the support that you need, right? Because even at this point, when we're talking about, I'm just looking at your chart, and there's nothing sitting in your seventh house, which means that you're not getting any sort of energetic support from anything. I mean, you have Leo and the Sun in there, you have Libra and Venus in there because that's just who lives there in your energy just naturally. But you don't have anybody else in there. It's like not a lot of support, so you could feel like unsupported at work. You could feel kind of unsupported by a significant other, and maybe it's not even their fault. It doesn't. This is not about blaming. It doesn't even have. But you're thinking about your future, and it's kind of like you feel really concerned because you could feel very overwhelmed because you could feel like the world is on your shoulders. Like a lot of the good changes that you want to make in your life, it's like up to you and only you kind of thing, right? Even if you have partners in your life or good friends, you're at this point where you realize the biggest changes that have to happen in your life come from you and only you, that kind of thing, right? And you could feel like a little sensitive about that, right? But you're doing a lot of thinking. You have Mercury at 1 degree in there, and that's Sagittarius energy. You have Venus in that Sagittarius energy in the 11th house, your goals and gains. When we have this opposition, the moon is going to be traveling in there. So you could be thinking about your goals and gains and your future and your friends and the groups that you're involved with. And you could just be feeling a little disappointed right now and just a little like, the air out of your wings, so to speak, right? Just right now. This is not going to last, okay? when that Mars goes into Leo, and in about 12 days, when that Pluto energy goes into your first house, we're going to have a direct opposition there with the Mars energy between, you, who you are, the path that you're on, and other, having to do with the boss, significant other, whatever it is. And this opposition is going to present the confrontation that's necessary to move something forward. So even if you're not feeling it right now, if everything seems hunky-dory, but you're just feeling a little wah-wah, right? Having to do maybe with work, or maybe having to do with the realm of relationship, whatever it is, because there's a lot of things in the air. You're just not sure where is it all going to land, and that could create anxiety. Kind of hang with that for now, try your very best not to fight against that. Try your very best not to try to figure it all out right now. It's kind of no sense in it, because this is going to be such a period of change that there's no way of you being able to really know what's going to be coming up on the other side. But just rest in the fact that Pluto is trining Uranus. So whatever big change comes in, you are going to have this blessing of the trine, right? It's still going to be in a trine. It'll be in a wide trine, but it'll still be in a trine even when it goes into Aquarius. So you're going to have that energy in a trined position from now until, I want to say, like August, when Uranus finally moves, August of 25, okay? So, you could hold on to that. Anything else that I wanted to talk about? Yeah, I mean, I just feel like work is kind of like a little bit of a bummer for you guys right now. I'm just vibing that. That's like your day-to-day responsibilities, your day-to-day. It's like, wah, uh, you know, because you have Hades in there, you have Kronos. It's very isolated. It's feeling, there's bureaucracy, there's, a lot of have-to stuff. And with that Mars energy in there, you kind of like want to rail against it. You want to rail against all of those things because you guys really don't like to have to deal with those things. You don't like, just naturally, you're not into that like very regimented kind of stuff. I mean, you guys are Aquarians. You like to do your own thing. You like to dance to the beat of your own drum. And that's why we love you. Right? But it's like having that Hades and Kronos in the sixth house of like responsibility, and even the house of health, again, it's like, feeling kind of held back and kind of limited because of some sort of little health situation, health scare. And I'm saying it like that because I don't see a big thing right now. This is not what I see, not for the general collective. I don't, again, I don't know what's you and your own birth chart. It's a little different if in your first house, within those first 10 degrees, you have Neptune, or if you have Hygeia retrograde, in your first house, you might be a little more prone to having some sort of physical manifestation having to do with your health connected there. But, in the same way, if you have something like in your natal chart, like a Uranus within the first 10 degrees, there could be a lot of growth in the realm of like technology, advances in science, making new friends, meeting new people. So it does, you really do need to keep these general messages in perspective and know your own chart. Please know your own chart. Again, this is Western Whole House. I do evolutionary astrology, so everything starts with Chiron in my book. I look at astrology through a psychological lens, but it doesn't matter. I do use the Western whole house system. So that's the nuts and bolts, I think, of this. Of course, we're going to be coming back around and revisiting this energy because it's going to be here for a little while. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. The next couple of weeks going to be very, very bananas. And I'm so happy. I'm having surgery on Tuesday. And I told the doctor I want like the best anesthesia to just be knocked out for the whole day. I want my surgery late in the day, fix all my bones, put the pins in, knock me out. I really don't want to wake up until Wednesday. I don't want to deal with this election anymore, right? Aren't we all just so tired of it? All right, we just kind of everybody's energy is just so like, and it's not going to settle, guys. That's the thing. It's not going to settle. So stick with your tribe, hang with people who you trust. Don't engage in any argument, rise above, and everything's going to be just fine. Please do not buy into any of like the fear-mongering stuff about this opposition on a personal level. It can manifest pretty profoundly on a more global level for sure. on a societal level, but on a personal level, let's just take it one step at a time, right? To navigate these energies moving forward for these next 6 months, okay? All right, until next time, guys, I'll see you then. Bye-bye. Hi, Pisces. I hope you guys are doing great today. Let's talk about this Pluto-Mars opposition. So as of today, Pluto is still in Capricorn at 29 degrees in your 11th house, and Mars is at 29 degrees in Cancer. Just for today. Tomorrow, Mars is moving, but let's talk about this because this energy is kind of profound. It's like setting a theme, setting a tone. So with this Pluto energy still in Capricorn, right, which rules the government, which rules long-term goals, your career, your place in the world, right? The status of your greatest relationships, having to do with your long-term plans in the 11th house of goals and gains and friends. It has to do with technology, advances in science and advances in medicine, right? All of these, Pluto mixed in this energy is very, very big, right? It's a big energy. It's sitting opposite that Mars and Cancer energy in the fifth house, which has to do with relationships, your own business, your joy, your happiness, your desire and ability to take chances in life, children, okay, your children in your life, anything that you create, right? Monetizable talents as well. Now, these are in opposition at 29 degrees. And 29 degrees is a critical degree. And what you need to do when you're dealing with a 29 degree is take the sign and understand the shadow manifestation of that sign. So when you have the shadow manifestation of Capricorn, it's very controlling. It's very, no, this is the way that it needs to be. This is how I think it needs to be. And it's opposing the fifth house of children. So you could be in this space where it's like, no, this is what I need for my child. This is what my child needs. And you could even be feeling very protective of your child, very protective of your child around other children, very protective of your child within the school system, very protective of your child and just the people that they're hanging out with if they're a little older or the choices that they're making. There could be this butting of the heads with your children as well. There can be some sort of arguments having to do with children. In the same way, you could also have to do with, because it's in the sign of Cancer, where there's some sort of arguments going on the home front. It could have to do with property and real estate, where it is that you guys live, some sort of larger family situations going on. The arguments could be up with a significant other about your children, or it could be things like that. But there is this opposition, which is uncomfortable, and it's all about confrontation. That's what this is, right? Because Pluto is very controlling. Very controlling. And in Capricorn, it's like, get out of my way. This is how I have to do it. This is how it needs to be done. And the underbelly of Cancer at that 29th degree is vulnerability and insecurity, right? So there's nothing being done out of malice. It's things are being responded to, reacted to. We want to respond, but we may find ourselves reacting because of fear-based energies around our children, around our home, around our emotional security, around our joy and happiness. So almost feeling like it's something that we have to safeguard. You will feel like it's something that you have to safeguard, something that you feel like if you don't fight for it, nobody will. I have to take care of this, that kind of energy. You know what I mean? So that is today. That's going to be staying there. Even though Mars moves into Leo tomorrow, what ends up happening there, guys, is it becomes that Pluto energy is still at 29 degrees Capricorn, right? But now it's opposing with that Mars in Leo in your sixth house, which is called an out of bounds opposition. So it's not an 11th house, fifth house, which is on the same axis. Now it's 11th house, sixth house. But the degree, it's still opposing each other. They're still in conversation, but they're out of bounds because they're in different houses, which can make you feel the energy. I've been saying this for all the signs. So if you listen to other signs, I'm saying it there too. It makes us feel like we're stuck in a pinball machine, right? Where it's like our energies are going to be all over the place with an out of bounds opposition. This is what ends up happening because it's opposing, but it's scattering between the fifth house and the sixth house. So this could be sixth house is health, fifth house is children, the health of a child, sixth house responsibilities, fifth house children, the responsibilities around a child, sixth house is your daily work environment, fifth house could be your own business around the day-to-day workings of your business. Sixth house could be it's health, right? It's health in general, right? Fifth house could be a significant other, is something going on with the health of a significant other. having to do with Leo and Cancer, going back between that Leo and Cancer energy, having to do with circumstances surrounding the home environment with your children when it comes to dealing with the responsibilities and a significant other. So is there strain between you and a partner, or is there strain between, what it is that you really want for yourself, your life, your joy, your happiness, and what it is that you're actually manifesting right now? Thinking about all of your responsibilities, thinking about your children, thinking about your home, thinking about, what it is that you ultimately want to do. There could be a lot of very challenging energies. There could be something that you really want to do right now, Pisces, that's very creative, something that you really want to get out there, you want to move, but it's all these other responsibilities are getting in the way. It's almost like it's not giving you the reprieve to breathe, to plan and work, right? And that kind of energy can be very frustrating because Pluto opposing Mars, they're different octaves of each other. Mars is the original and ancient ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And so they're different octaves of each other. They're very aggressive. They're very focused on change. They're very focused on growing us, whether we like it or not. So things cannot stay the same. They definitely have to grow. But this is a season of confrontation between now and the beginning of May. Confrontation and needing to adjust. So you're either going to be getting rid of things or you're going to be updating and upgrading things. There is no in between. It's not going to be able to stay the way that it is right now. So there can be some sort of challenges that are going on in this arena for you. Some of you may be really having some heavy challenges when it comes to your children right now, to be quite frank with you. I mean, because you also have Hades and Kronos in there. Hades is, and they're both retrograde. So it's like this suffering silence, or you fearing that your child is suffering silently. Kronos has to do with bureaucracy. It has to do with age. It's Saturn's father. It's like, it's slow and it's paternalistic and it's controlling. And it's like this thing is a play that's larger, right? Than you are. It's something that you can't really control, but you have this suffering and you might be like fighting against it when it comes to something pertaining to, if it's not one of your children, and I hope your children are all okay, it's in the sign of Cancer. It could have to do with your home, where it is that you really want to live. So maybe you want to live somewhere else, but there's so much bureaucracy, or there's so much nonsense, red tape, craziness, the interest rates, rents are so high, whatever the case is, that's a problem to you. So do you know what I'm saying? It's like anything within that realm. There could also be this idea that if you're in relationship, you're just really not getting what it is that you need, and you feel like you have to fight for what it is that you need on a soul level. These are all the energies that could be coming up during this time. Now, in about 12 days, when Pluto goes into the 12th house for the next 20 years, it is going to be opposing in a direct opposition to that Mars in Leo. Now, keep in mind, though, Leo, like I said before, Leo's going to be dancing back and forth between Leo and Cancer, Leo and Cancer. Wide oppositions, but oppositions nonetheless between now and like the end of April, beginning of May. So you want to keep this in mind for the next several months, that we are going to be dealing with this opposition. Now, the energy is coming from Mars. So Mars is going to be in the sixth house, is all about problem solving. Let's get to the core. Let's solve this problem. Let's be really open and honest about any open enemies that we have that are trying to work against us. Let's get very honest and straight about our daily work environment and what is the right thing to be doing, getting straight with our work, right? Getting straight with our health, very important there. Pluto going into the 12th house can absolutely bring, Mars and Pluto in opposition in the 6th house, 12th house can bring fabulous healing for any of those of you who might be struggling with some sort of addiction, anything having to do with alcohol or drugs, any sort of substance abuse, anything having to do with it could even be, doesn't have to do anything with addiction, but the sixth house is your house, the house of health and body maintenance. And the 12th house, which is where Pluto's going to be, is the house of disease and dis-ease and disease. So dis-ease, we could say, is more like anxiety and depression and just not feeling right. Disease can obviously be anything that's sort of cultivating underneath things that we don't even maybe even realize initially, right? A lot of my Pisces friends out there, I really want you to be careful with Capricorn, Pluto going from Capricorn into Aquarius in the 12th house. We really want to watch our joints, our bones, our muscle, anything connected to our joints and our bones, our ligaments, our teeth. We really want to watch out for any sort of like rheumatism, any sort of autoimmune issue that ends up popping up, because autoimmune is very Aquarian, and it's going to be in that Pluto in that energy. It brings things up, right, that have been cooking. So, if you're not feeling right, as I've been saying in a lot of videos, and I am never about fear mongering, guys. I am just simply not about that. But I believe in being like, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. If you're not feeling right, if your skin feels weird, if your hair's really dry, if it's falling out a lot, go get your thyroid checked. Go get things checked. Go get some blood work. Get the whole gamut. And hopefully everything comes out easy peasy, squeaky clean, and you have a really good baseline. And then make sure that you continue to go back, because Pluto's going to be in there for the next 20 years. And you have a good baseline to start, and make sure that you go regularly so that you could catch things early. Because when Pluto goes into the second house, sixth house, or 12th house, many times, more often than not, it does ultimately end up manifesting as some sort of health issues. So let's get in front of it as soon as it starts, right? We don't want to let anything fester in this kind of energy. Now, additionally, we do have this Mars energy is going to be squaring Estrella. And Estrella is in Libra, and it's in your eighth house. So the eighth house does represent other people's money. And wherever Estrella is, we have a very hard time letting go. Very hard time. So it has to do with shared resources. It has to do with other people's money, like I said, investments, the stock market, inheritance, insurance payout, money from, like if you're getting any sort of money from like retirement or anything like that. It also has to do with sex and intimacy. It has to do with blending energies with another person. It has to do with life and death. Um, it's it's also the house of divorce. And it's the house of like what we're actually really, really committed to, right? So it's the house of endings and beginnings. But wherever Estrella is in that house, when Estrella is in that house of transformation in the sign of Libra, which rules relationships, it rules contracts, it rules transparency, right? What are we holding on to there that maybe shouldn't be held on to quite so tightly at this point, right? And it is squaring Mars. Mars cusping at that fifth house, going into that sixth house, it is a square, and so, looking at that place where it's like, is your partner really your partner and your friend, or is your partner actually an open enemy? Do they really want what's best for you, or is there something else going on? Are you staying in something because you don't want to bother breaking up the assets and breaking up the situation because it's easier not to? Um, it's that kind of energy, if that makes sense, right? But it's holding on too long to something. And because it's squaring that Mars really wants what's good for you. And in the square, it's trying to get you to release something. And again, this really is a season of release, adding something, but something needs to be let go. Now, what we do like here is this Pluto trining Uranus. So Pluto in that last degree of Capricorn, even when he goes into Aquarius, he's still going to be trining Uranus in the sign of Taurus in your third house. So this could be a really great for your communication, anything having to do with like your siblings, extended family, your neighbors, your neighborhood, anything surrounding like home. Some of you might be deciding to move. So, and I don't mean like right now, Uranus is going to be going into the fourth house in August of 2025. So he's in the last decan right now in the sign of Taurus. Taurus does rule the money that you make from the work that you do or that you have in your bank account, as well as your possessions and things that matter to you. But he's also very much about change. So when Uranus goes into the fourth house in Gemini, you might be changing neighborhood, you might be changing zip codes. There could be some changes going on the home front that you might be setting yourself up for a little later in the year. But Pluto is very supportive of these changes that are going to be going on. So I do want you to understand that. Now, Pluto does naturally rule the eighth house, which has to do with divorce, endings, and beginnings. So if you are ending relationships or ending some sort of legal situation or ending something like this, it will be a beneficial energy for you. This is a supportive energy, what we're talking about. Now, Mars is also rule your second house, which is where your Aries sits. And so, it's going to be shaking up and giving you a lot of gumption to focus on your money, your sense of self, your self-esteem, as well as your own foundation. And Pluto also rules your ninth house of legal matters, legal situations, dealing with the law. Um, Dealing with lawyers of any kind, dealing with higher education, higher mindedness, but generally speaking, your ability to negotiate, grow your life, and move on, as well as publishing, marketing, getting something out there to the world. Pluto is going to be making a lot of change there, but there's going to be a lot of control. It's going to be controlling a lot of your energy. Is this idea of growth is really going to have a grip on you, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're following this idea of growth. You're following this idea of where it is that you need to go. You have a lot on your mind right now about your future and where you're going, and all of these things are really, really good. None of those things to be concerned about, but there is going to have to be this sort of like letting go. There's no question, especially as Pluto goes into the 12th house. This is where you live, that it is your domicile, and this is very personal. So you're going to be experiencing your Pluto energy for the next 20 years on a very personal level, opposing that sixth house, really working on yourself, working on your spirituality, working on your health, working on your daily responsibilities, working on, just feeling a lot more grounded, a lot more grounded, and being very intuitive, by the way, at the same time. Not that you even like need that, really, right? But also, I do want to mention that with this Mars energy in Cancer in the fifth house, opposing the 11th house. That fifth house energy is falling in love, love affairs, romance. And the 11th house is friends, or it's even the public. And with these two opposing each other, you might find out that a friend of yours has feelings for you, or you may be realizing that you have feelings for a friend, or if you're in any sort of position where you are on like social media, or you have any sort of platform that you have some sort of fan. Right? But because it's like opposing, there could be some sort of like challenging energy involved with that. So just do be careful. We don't want any stalkers going on here. Just be mindful of that, right? So if you have any sort of platform, check your comments and don't over disclose anything. Most of us know that anyway, who have any kind of platform. But just because you never know, who it is that you're dealing with out there in cyber world, right? Because that 11th house where Pluto is at 29 degrees, that is the house of technology. So we really want to be careful, right? Also, double and triple check your passwords, especially over the next couple of months. Check your statements, make sure that everything adds up, especially also with that Uranus energy in the third house. Okay, you're protected, but you want to make sure that you're checking for anything going on in that arena, stolen passwords, weird stuff like that goes on. All right, my friends. So I hope this was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.